Warning, the following podcast contains adult language, themes, and situations. Also, the film we're about to talk about is going to be spoiled thoroughly. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy this show.
In the midst of financial troubles, Nicolas Cage turned down a huge Expendables 3 payday to team up with director David Gordon Green and a young Tye Sheridan to make a film most people have likely never even heard of. And it's an absolute shame, because what they created is a hidden gem that might just be one of the best performances Nicolas Cage has ever delivered. So settle in as we dive deep into this brutal and heartbreaking forgotten indie film, Joe.
Okay, let's run.
I'm like a prickly pear.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole. Porker, how'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and beat until you pissed blood?
Welcome to One Cage at a Time, the show where we break down every single Nicolas Cage movie, one film at a time. Here are your hosts, Patrick, Vince, and Nigel.
When an ex-con takes a destitute young drifter under his wing, he becomes an unlikely role model. But when he finds out the boy's father is abusing him, he's faced with the ultimate choice between redemption and ruin.
Let's see who's joining Nick on this adventure.
Joe features spellbinding performances from pre-cyclops, pre-ready Player One Tye Sheridan, the one and only performance from actual homeless person and the man this film is dedicated to, Gary Poulter, and Joe himself, Academy Award-winning actor, and the man I want in my corner when things get dark, Nicolas Kim Coppola, better known as Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Patrick, hit us with some stats, won't you?
Joe was released, originally premiered August 30th, 2013 at the Venice International Film Festival, but opened wide on April 11th, 2014 in the United States with a budget of $4 million, and it only made $2.4 million. Not exactly like a movie I would run to the theater to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you leave the theater, you kind of want to be hopeful after, and I don't know. That being, I mean, I went to see Pig in the theater, so I guess, yeah.
There's hope there.
Pig was happier than this movie by a lot.
Oh, God, by far.
Yeah. I think they both end on a positive note, though.
They do, yeah. This was directed by David Gordon Green, who is, as I said in the last episode, one of my favorites. But he's mostly known for comedy. But he's also he's done some pretty serious drama as well. But he's very known for Pineapple Express, the Seth Rogen and that other guy that we don't talk about anymore movie, and The Sitter with Jonah Hill. Our Brand is Crisis, which was I feel like that was a fairly decent size hit as well. That was more of a kind of a serious take. I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I have no idea. But then he's hooked up with Danny McBride on a ton of stuff. Worked on Your Highness, that movie with him and who was it? Was it Emma Watson? Natalie Portman.
No, it was Natalie Portman, yeah.
Natalie Portman. And then he did Eastbound and Down with him, Vice Principals, and Righteous Gemstones, which is actually airing right now. And this is for people who don't know, but Danny McBride actually co-wrote the new Halloween trilogy.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did see him in the credits for Joe. He was one of the producers.
Yep. Yeah. Seems like he's teams up with David Gordon Green for pretty much everything that he does. I don't really know what the relationship is there. I should have probably researched it, but I'm guessing that they're just friends from way back, and they've worked together for a long time now. Eastbound and Down is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Vice Principals was amazing. I haven't watched Righteous Gemstones yet, but it's very high on my list of things I gotta jump into.
I'm waiting for it to finish up so I can watch it, because I love everything these two guys do. That's why when I saw him as a director, I was like, whoa, I've never seen him do something this dark and okay, I take that back. I've never seen him do anything this serious.
Yeah,
because Eastbound and Down and Vice Principals get pretty dark.
Even so, I really love the movie Prince Avalanche, which is kind of another indie movie that a lot of people haven't heard of, but it was brought to David Gordon Green by Explosions in the Sky, which is one of my favorite bands, and they kind of like had this vague story, but they had all this music that they wanted to put to these visuals of like these guys repairing the roads after a big fire in Texas. And then they also worked together on, I think it's called Manglehorn. I haven't actually seen that one yet, but Prince Avalanche, even that is funny. You know, it's a serious movie, but it also has elements of comedy, and I really didn't feel any of that comedy in this movie. This movie is just devoid of anything that David Gordon Green is really like known for, which is kind of crazy. Like to go from, maybe he just needed a break from comedy. That's why he decided to do this. To just, I need to do something super serious.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what attracted him to the project specifically. This was written by Gary Hawkins, who mostly has done documentaries and stuff, but he did a documentary about the author of the book, Joe, Larry Brown. He did this documentary called The Rough South of Larry Brown. And so I guess he just decided to kind of take Joe and turn it into a film. He hasn't really done anything else film-wise, which is kind of crazy. Going from documentaries to this, which is kind of crazy. This was shot by Tim Orr, who has also shot most of David Gordon Green's films. He also shot Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. I don't know if you guys saw that one with Steve Carell, which is...
I think I did.
It is Steve Carell, right?
Yeah.
And then he did Pee-wee's Big Holiday.
Definitely saw that.
I saw that one.
Yeah, Pee-wee. I guess that would be Pee-wee's third movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
That one I didn't love nearly as much as the first two.
It wasn't that good. Pee-wee's Big Adventure is one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah.
I actually really like the was it Big Top Pee-wee?
Big Top Pee-wee.
I actually really like that one because it was on a lot when I was a kid, so I think there's nostalgia for it because I watched Pee-wee's Playhouse all the time. Mm-hmm. I actually recently went back and watched all of the Pee-wee's Playhouse episodes.
Jeez,
which don't really play well as an adult, but there are funny moments. Yeah. This was edited by Colin Patton, who also has worked on a lot of David Gordon Green projects, basically from 2013 on everything that David Gordon Green has done. And I think Prince Avalanche might have been the first thing that they worked on together, but he also worked on The Good Place, Pitch Perfect 3, and then he was an assistant on Borat, Knocked Up, Yes Man, and Funny People, that Judd Apatow movie that everybody seems to hate, but I love that movie.
Funny People, yeah.
Funny People's one of my favorites, and I don't know why it gets so much hate.
I think it's because people were expecting it to be more Adam Sandler-y, and it was not at all.
That was exactly why it was good.
I know. I really appreciate that he played a more serious, neutral character instead of the over the top Billy Madison, Grown Ups, slapstick comedy guy.
If you like funny people and you like Adam Sandler being somewhat serious but also goofy at the same time, you should watch Punch Drunk Love at some point. Oh yeah, God, that movie's great.
That's another movie that I think is kind of fallen off of people's radar.
Definitely, yeah.
It's really good, especially going back. I feel like it aged really well.
Mm-hmm. That was Paul Thomas Anderson, I think. Mm-hmm. And then the music was done by David Wingo, who did Gentleman Broncos, a completely forgotten about Jared Hess movie. He's the guy who did Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. But Gentleman Broncos is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, but it's super enjoyable just for the weird factor of it. Stupid movie, but funny, and there are some really funny parts. And he also did the music for Mud. That I think that was that Matthew McConaughey movie.
Oh yeah.
All right. And then he did Barry, that show for HBO. With, God, why am I blanking on all these names?
Bill Hader.
Bill Hader, yeah.
Yeah.
And then also the music was co-written by Jeff McIlwain, who also did The Sitter and has worked on pretty much everything David Gordon Green has worked on. And also there is one little piece of music done by Weston Cage Coppola, Nicolas Cage's son.
What the hell?
Who has also been in a few movies. He was in Lord of War in a bit part, and then Rage, the other Nick Cage movie, and 211.
Oh, wow.
So he's worked with his dad 3 times as an actor. And then I don't really know. I just saw it in the credits of like Weston Cage Coppola did one little piece of music. So I was like, I have to call that out.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the thrash metal he was listening to.
Maybe. It might have been, actually. Yeah. Rotten Tomatoes gave this an 86%, 7.3 out of 10 on 135 reviews. Audience score was 68%, which makes sense. This is definitely a critic's film. More than an audience film. It's not a crowd pleaser, that's for sure. Metacritic gave it a 74%. And then IMDb gave it a 6.9 out of 10. No cinema score. I'm guessing it didn't get a wide enough release.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of same sentiment across the board as 7.3, 68, 74, 6.9. So right around 7 is what pretty much everybody gave it.
How about a Coppola quick facts?
So the film was based on the book, as I mentioned, Joe by Larry Brown. Larry Brown died not super, I think it was like 10 years before this movie came out, so he never got to see the theatrical version of his book. Apparently a very tortured soul, and he wrote a lot of dark stuff like this for the most part. Most of his books are, I guess, about kind of the dark parts of the South, which we got real dark in this one. Mm-hmm. Nick Cage describes his performance as naked, saying that Joe, as a character, is very close to him, and he didn't even need to act throughout the whole film, which I can believe. I feel like, I mean,
it's so weird to me because, like 10 years prior to this, he said that Michael from The Weatherman, or David from The Weatherman, was him, basically, and they're like complete opposite ends of the spectrum as far as characters go.
I guess just not over the top weird guy is what Nicolas Cage describes himself as outside of actual film.
I'm guessing in that span of time, his life had changed.
Yeah.
At this point in his life, he is really identifying with Joe.
Mm-hmm.
He's broken and lost and desperate to
carries a lot of anger about stuff. And
just kind of done with everything.
Yeah.
In 2004, Cage was coming off of divorce, so he probably really related to that aspect of that character and kind of being lost and not really sure where he was going. So yeah, I can see both sides.
Yeah. It's such a turn. It's kind of sad that like those are the two roles that he's said he feels the most connected to.
Maybe now he's Robin Feld from Pig.
Yeah.
Which I could totally see that too,
And kind he's good in all 3 of those movies, so maybe that's his real niche. He just never was given a chance to exercise it because he came out with movies like Vampire's Kiss right out the gate.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, yeah, do that.
I mean, that's kind of his own fault, though. He wanted to go for that avant-garde style of acting. And I think we said it at one point that somebody had said that he's the only person to bring something new to acting since Marlon Brando.
Yeah. Well, Ethan Hawke said that about him.
Ethan Hawke. Yeah. Both Nicolas Cage and Tye Sheridan have starred in Marvel comic films. Cage starred as Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider, obviously, in Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. And then Sheridan starred as Scott Summers in the as Cyclops in X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix. Yeah. I didn't like Apocalypse either.
I didn't like either one of them.
The
Yeah.
two films I haven't seen.
They're both
Yeah, you don't need to see them.
not,
They're not.
really worth
I've
watching.
heard they're awful, so I just stayed away.
Days of Future Past was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
And
incredible.
just end
First
with
Class
Days
was
of
pretty
Future
good.
Past.
Yeah, First Class was fun, but Days of Future Past was next
Amazing,
level.
yeah.
Yeah. Just end it with Days of Future Past and Logan, and then don't worry about the other two movies. Those are
Yeah.
pointless.
Logan really, I mean, I guess it's connected, but it just feels like
It's a separate, its
Yeah.
own.
Yeah,
thing,
it's
whatever.
just stands
They're
alone
both
on that.
good endings. Well, one's not a good ending, but they're both satisfying conclusions.
yeah, for
To
sure.
those movies.
All will be undone in Doctor Strange 2. So
Yeah.
We'll see.
Once we know the truth, or whatever he says.
Yeah. I'm
Mr.
80.
what you did with Spider-Man was a major faux pas.
Just Professor X with little clipper hands.
I can't get my hands to work.
Okay, last quick fact. This one's really sad. Is David Gordon Green often casts locals in his movies. This is something that I've noticed going back through his films, especially Prince Avalanche. He just kind of cast people who were actually affected by the fire and stuff where they were at. But this one features Gary Poulter, who is the guy who plays G-Dog. Whose actual name is Wade, but I don't think we ever hear his name in the whole movie. But Gary's dad is played by Gary Poulter, who was an actual homeless man in Austin. He had just become homeless. He was in like a traveling circus, and he had tried to steal some money. And apparently he had acted before. He was in an episode of 30-something. But it was kind of a huge risk on David Gordon Green's part casting this dude, because he obviously was, a little bit of a character. And so he was in the traveling circus, and they found out that he had stolen money, and they left him naked on the side of the road. And he ended up homeless after that. I'm guessing that he just kind of wandered in while they were, looking for locations and stuff while they were doing this, and he had the look, and like, I'll do anything. I've acted before.
He had that look and that voice.
Yeah,
that what that voice is like. I don't think you can fake that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Poulter actually died on the streets of Austin just after the movie wrapped filming. So he died on February 19th, 2013, 2 months after filming had ended. And, makes you wonder, like, did he die kind of in the similar style as the guy that he kills in the movie?
So I thought you were going to say, did he jump off a bridge?
No.
And go splat.
Spoilers. This film circulated into the mainstream news when Gary Poulter was found dead in a shallow body of water on February 19th, 2013, before the film was even released. Poulter, who played Wade in the film, was homeless, suffered from alcoholism, and was already seriously ill. So I guess he was dying even while this was going on. But,
Jeez.
Jesus.
His only other acting credit, as I said, was a background extra in the TV series 30-something, which I feel like that show has been kind of forgotten. But it's crazy that he would go from that to this. And like Roger Ebert was even like, it was a spellbinding performance. And I think he really is kind of the hub of this film. Like as much as you hate him, it's an amazing performance throughout. Producers were worried that casting Poulter in the film would be a risk because of his alcoholism, but Green stayed committed to having him in the film, and I think the results speak for themselves.
The author of Joe, Larry Brown, was only 53 when he passed in 2004, but he'd already built an incredible body of work that will live on forever. You can find several of his masterfully eloquent written books narrated beautifully by some of the best in the business over on Libro.fm. We love Libro.fm because not only can you pick from more than 250,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from real booksellers, but you'll be helping support your local bookstore as well. With every subscription or individual sale made on Libro.fm, you can choose exactly which bookstore you want the sale to go to, giving you the power to keep money within your local economy, create jobs, and make a difference in your community. And if you're watching this in the US or Canada, you can get 2 audiobooks for the price of 1 with your first month of membership on Libro.fm by using our coupon code CAGE at checkout.
Let's break this bitch down. Act 1. Let's set some stuff up.
Our feel-good romp begins next to some train tracks with a kid named Gary confronting what I imagine Gandalf the Wizard would have looked like after a few years if Sauron had managed to get the ring from Frodo. Gary tells his grandpa dad, it's his dad, but the dude looks 70 despite being only 53 at the time of filming. Life's rough on the streets of Texas.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gary tells his dad that he messes up a lot and leaves a big mess for Gary and his mom to clean up everywhere they go. He says that whatever mess he's currently in will ensure that someone will beat his ass, and Gary's counting on it. Dad responds by slapping his son in the face, storming off, and promptly has his ass beat. Gary leaves him to his fate, and unfortunately for the world, Skid Row Gandalf lives to drink another day. It's a good opener for this movie, like that.
Yeah, it sets
the tone for the entire film.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes, it does.
For sure, yeah.
We cut to the greatest actor of his generation, the legend himself, and this film's namesake, Joe, waiting for a downpour to pass over his truck while listening to a weather report. He heads out to tell his crew of tree poisoners that they're calling it a day on account of the rain. That's their real job. They poison trees for a living.
Yeah.
The foreman, who may or may not be Beetlejuice from Howard Stern, rounds up the crew into Joe's truck, and he tells Joe that he needs to get a less rickety pickup. Joe drops off the crew and chugs some whiskey before spotting Gary and his family soaking wet in an alleyway, picking through garbage cans and looking utterly destitute and pitiful. Joe heads to his humble home where we meet his charming bulldog bodyguard, who I think also had a role as one of the protectors of Gozer and Ghostbusters. I don't know if it was a bulldog or a pit bull. I think it was more pit bull.
I think he said he calls it an American bulldog.
He does, but I think it's a pit bull.
Yeah, which is a pit bull. That's what pit bulls are classified. American
Are they?
Bulldogs.
Really?
Mm-hmm, American Bulldog Terrier.
Yeah, because actual, like, there's like pit bulls, which are like more, I think, Mastiff style dogs. Mm-hmm. Like actual pit bulls are, I don't know, it's a weird breed.
It's a weird breed, and then it just gets kind of...
They're all specialized in different ways, too, so there's different breeds around the same thing. But anyway, he's got a scary-ass dog.
Yeah.
We see that Joe lives alone, but at least he owns a dope-ass Pantera shirt and has some sick-ass arm tattoos, which I believe you said are Nicolas Cage's actual tattoos.
I think all of those are actually Nick Cage's, because I've seen him, walking down the street where like paparazzi have gotten pictures of him, and the tattoos look the same. I think the Woody Woodpecker was on this side, and I think it was covered by his Ghost Rider tattoo. But I'm not positive about that. I don't even know, like we said on the Raising Arizona one, I don't know if his Woody Woodpecker was, it is Woody, no. Which, what cartoon character?
It was Woody.
Yeah, Woody Woodpecker.
I don't know if the Woody Woodpecker was ever actually real. Some people said it was, he got it but ahead of filming as a big commitment to the role, but I don't know. I've never seen any evidence outside of Raising Arizona that he ever actually had that tattoo. But I'm pretty sure that is the Ghost Rider tattoo that we see in the film.
Mm-hmm. I tried to make it out, but I couldn't quite ever really tell what the tattoos were. He just has like, I don't know what you call it. It's almost a half sleeve. It's like his whole upper arm on both arms.
Yeah. I think that he has those tattoos in real life, but I don't know for sure.
It would make sense too as an actor because you can mostly cover that if you keep it up to your upper arms or whatever. So it's probably his real tattoos.
Once he retires, he's going to get a full sleeve.
Just go full
When he's
Yakuza and just
85.
full body tattoos.
Give some fucking face tats.
He gets the Mike Tyson.
The next morning, he feeds his dog on a cinder block for some reason and wakes up with a little whiskey. How many gallons of whiskey have Nick Cage characters drank in the last 20 movies that we've watched so far? We should have created a tracker to
It's been a lot, man.
blood alcohol content of Nick Cage throughout the years.
That would be an interesting
Throughout the
exercise
movies.
to go back and like track all of the alcohol through all the films, because there's been a ton. There's
Yeah,
like
it's easier
half
to
of the
list movies
characters
that he doesn't drink in.
Yeah, half the characters have been drunks.
Yeah, I think Grandal would probably take the cake, though.
Yeah, I think Grand Isle wins.
Until we get to Raising Arizona. Or not, Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah, leaving Las Vegas will win for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which he was really drunk through every scene. I can't even imagine how awful that would have been. Like having to work 16 hours a day drunk nonstop. Anything for an Oscar, though.
That'd be horrible. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Maybe that's the key.
Even
He
liver
just needs to
damage.
get drunk
Yeah.
again and start acting.
Well, that was about the time that he ended up cleaning up, was shortly after leaving Las Vegas. Because he was kind of off the rails. Like that Wogan, I think it's Wogan, interview where he's just like coked out of his mind and just freaking out when he comes on set. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but it's spellbinding.
Yeah.
Welcome, Nicolas Cage.
Joe picks up his crew at a hole-in-the-wall corner store where Beetlejuice says he has a dick the size of a summer sausage, but another guy says he actually has one the size of a beef stick. These are the important details we here at One Cage feel that you need to know. None of these guys were actual actors, right? They were,
No.
they're just people, so they're like their banter and chatter felt very realistic because it was just like what you'd hear from a workaday crew.
Yeah.
Bullshitting and stuff.
I don't get the sense that any of that was scripted at all. I feel like a lot of this movie was kind of unscripted.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that was directly from the book, but I mean, at least anybody outside of Nick Cage and Tye Sheridan, probably.
Yeah. Do you think when Joe's handing out the money to the guys, it's actually them paying the actors? Like, there you go. Here's your $200 for today for filming.
Good job.
Yeah.
Don't tell the guild. Don't tell the Screen Actors Guild. In the forest, we see what the crew actually does. They use juice hatchet. They use juice hatchets, which are basically hatchets with hoses attached to them, to cut into trees and poison them so they die. That way, they're easier to bulldoze so the area can be replanted with strong trees for building and such. I think it's paper. I think he mentions it's paper companies.
They said Niedermeyer.
Which may have been like Weyerhaeuser.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's supposed to be like a stand-in for paper.
Wirehammer? Is it Wirehammer?
Wireheimer. Yeah, something like that.
If I remember from The Office, we can now sell Wirehammer paper.
My parents-in-law live on like land that's mostly owned by paper company for that same purpose. They plant trees there, and then every 20 years come harvest them or whatever.
Yeah. I've gone by a couple of those forests where they're just like straight up and down, like right next to each other. And they just come in and chop all the branches every so often,
Anyway, who even knew that was a job? Just poisoning trees to death. I didn't.
It's a job
but I guess
for
someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
It's easier than I guess, I don't know, because it's junk wood. I guess they can't just cut it down and sell it, use it for anything. So might as well poison it and then cut it down or bulldoze it or whatever they do.
It's like a soft tree, like soft materials, so they couldn't use it for building and couldn't use it for paper, obviously. But couldn't they use it
as much selling firewood?
Could you sell it for firewood after it's been poisoned? I would assume so, right?
I don't know if I'd want to poison
fumes.
firewood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying they don't have to poison it. Maybe they can cut them down to just sell it for firewood, but I think that'd be too much work and wouldn't have enough return on the investment. So whatever.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, It's a metaphor. He can only destroy things in this world, but do a good job at it. I think that's really what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, as we learned from our Ghost Rider episode, once you cut into the bark of a tree, it no longer protects the xylem and the phloem from pathogens, therefore making it susceptible to death from the poison it will now pump through its capillaries during photosynthesis.
Nice callback.
I feel like
I find it interesting. They just like chop a couple times, and then that's enough to get the poison in there. And
once you break that membrane, it starts pumping whatever is coming into the tree from there. I've learned a lot about biology and researching
Through this show.
Beetlejuice finds a snake in the woods, and Joe walks right up and catches it with his bare hands because, well, he's Nicolas fucking Cage. Gary, who was stick fighting a bush or something nearby, hears the commotion and comes to see the cool-ass snake, because who doesn't love snakes? Joe tosses a snake back into the woods, and Gary asks if he and his drunken, delinquent dad can have a job. Joe agrees to give him the job since Gary has done lots of other shitty jobs and can tell he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. Beetlejuice shows him the ropes. Sorry, we should probably use his actual name, Junior. And the crew put Gary to work, and he's a natural. Although he does almost slice himself and another guy in half with a machete. But, you know, no one's perfect on their first day.
He was really swinging that freaking machete around.
Just give a 15-year-old kid a machete and watch him go nuts.
Go crazy, bud.
I should also point out that they warn Gary not to get the poison in his eyes when he's swinging the hatchet, but like none of them wear eye protection or anything, so it's more suggestion, I guess. But
I guess.
That's
could
real life
invest
right
in
there.
like a $2 pair of safety glasses or something.
No, that shit fogs up, dude. It's annoying.
I'm guessing Beetlejuice already got it in his eyes.
Yeah.
He's got those summer eyes. Some are over here, some over here.
They're like, hey, Beetlejuice, how deep is, if you dig a 6-foot hole, how deep is it? He's all like, that's probably about 20 feet. That's a deep cut right there.
I don't get that reference.
It's Howard Stern bit. They asked Beetlejuice, how deep is a 6-foot hole? And he's like, let's say that's probably about 20 feet.
Joe pays Gary at the end of the day and tells him to bring his dad on Monday. He happily skips home to his family's charming, abandoned, dilapidated squatter house where he excitedly lets his mom and dad know that he got a job. Mom says, "Good for you, baby," while looking cracked out, and dad hangs out looking semi-comatose on the porch.
I was kind of like, what's going on with mom? Is she drunk too?
I think so.
Because she
How
always
else are you
seems...
going to deal with that life?
Yeah, maybe she's just been fried out from, trauma, which I have seen happen to people. Mm-hmm. She's just kind of like, just making it one day at a time. One moment to the next.
I mean, there's not a lot of future there, so why not?
They're homeless, living in a abandoned, it looks like a farm of some sort.
Yeah, farmhouse.
Yeah, because they're like in East Texas. They're supposed to be in East Texas, right?
I think so,
It's kind of,
I don't know where it was. But
a lot of
I know it was
farmland.
Texas,
A lot of farmland out there. A lot of wooded areas.
I think it was like outside of Austin somewhere. They never explicitly state in the film, but when I put it in the trackers, I put it as Texas because the book is in Texas.
Yeah. The sheriff cars say Service County, Texas, wherever that is. So
okay,
look up
cool.
if that's a real county.
And I know they show a Texas license plate at one point. I think on Joe's truck.
Yeah. Oh, I guess it's not a real county.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be.
So
As crazy as Texas is, Service County sounds made up.
So
even for Texas,
it's any town, Texas, USA.
Yeah.
It's Texas County, Texas.
Yeah. Joe heads to a brothel of some sort with an asshole dog that he seems to absolutely hate, as opposed to his super nice dog that eats Alpo off a brick and lives in a hole under his house. In the kitchen, which I think was the same pink room from Dog Eat Dog, Joe says that today is a special day because he's going to purchase the services of the madam of the house. But he gets cock-blocked by that stupid asshole dog, and despite having already paid his entrance fee, he leaves before punching his ticket.
Really weird, confusing scene.
Shows up, pays, hits on the madam, gets mad at the dog, and then he's out.
I was never quite sure what was going on in this house. Like, it's a brothel, right? I'm
right.
I'm right in it's a brothel and gym.
Yeah, it's a brothel. It's like an old farmhouse or something, plantation. I don't know what it was. Big house converted into a brothel. Also, a girl crawls on the floor like something out of The Ring for a second, just because.
Girl, get your ass off the floor. Quit being stupid.
Hey, sometimes it's fun to pretend to be a dog, I guess.
I was wondering if that was like, it's just, they were just people. They weren't actors. And the girl just decided to do something and they were still filming.
It doesn't seem to have a point. So
yeah,
maybe.
It was really weird. And then the madam like laughs about it and kind of almost breaks character a little bit.
Yeah. Just like, get the fuck off the floor.
Damn, bitch, get out the fucking
just something
floor.
David Gordon Green liked and decided to keep in.
He's like, yeah. That's funny.
He's like, wait, so I paid her to do anything? What if I tell her crawl on the floor like a dog?
They're like, whoa. Oh, thank God this went a different direction, David. Oh, yeah.
The breaks,
you can do that.
Joe makes a special trip to buy an apple at the store, as you do, and the clerk wears a helmet either because he's a big World War II buff or because he keeps bumping into stuff. Both are plausible. It seems like he's had some kind of head trauma.
Yeah. I don't think that guy was an actor either.
No
way
he was a real guy running a real corner store.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And it's just a lot of like, I think I call it out, but like people just talking over each other in this. Like you're not used to seeing that on film. People just having conversations over the top of each other, which this guy does too. Like Cage, you could tell Cage was just improvising with him in that scene.
He says that he donates all his winnings from bingo or something to diabetes research, which Joe or Cage interrupts him by saying,
Pow! Fistful of dollars.
presumably just because he wants to buy a damn apple and get out of there. I think it was, like he said, he was probably just improvising. Like, hey, shut up! We got to do a scene. It seems like
along,
really
man.
weird, like out of character for Joe to just.
Yeah,
it's a weird thing for him to say.
Yeah, and it was like he like cut him off kind of in the middle of him talking about his diabetes thing.
Yeah.
Pow! Fistful of dollars. It was like the most jarring, cagey moment of the whole film.
Also, some slimy looking dude with scars on his face spots Joe and presumably follows him. It looks like the bad guy from the terrible Green Lantern movie. I don't remember the actor's name, but he looks like that guy.
Or the second Green Goblin from The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
Creepy Dane DeHaan looking.
Yeah, Dane.
Yeah. I think Dane DeHaan's more cracked out looking than this guy.
Yeah.
100% agree.
We see Joe head to a guy named Henry's house where he's butchering a deer in the living room / kitchen for some reason that a crazy drunk lady shot in the head with a .38. I didn't hear that part. I thought it was like roadkill or something.
Shot him in the head with a .38.
Yeah.
They said that they saw it.
It was stuck on a fence.
That's right.
And she just had her .38 with her because, Texas. Yeah. And she just shot it in the head and they are butchering it in their living room or whatever.
Yeah, just hanging up in the kitchen.
Poorly butchering it.
Yeah, just hacking it. Hacking and smacking and whacking it.
I was just about to go into that.
Which you'd think these people, if it's a common enough occurrence to just shoot a deer that's been stuck on a fence, they would know how to dress it, cut it up and stuff.
You would think.
I don't know.
You would think.
I feel like you were born into that in Texas.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it was just set up to show that Joe has
helps
a
people
little
out.
more, helpful, and then also he's a little more knowledgeable than you would expect him to be.
While walking into the house, Joe also inexplicably chases a chicken around like it's a pigeon from the nighttime streets of New York.
I don't know. I don't have a story to cut this bill, children, but...
I don't get why he did. Like, the chicken's in the living room, but like the family's fine with it. Like, he walks in and then like the chicken's just sitting there, and then he's like, and he chases it out of the house.
I wondered, like,
flashbacks.
I wondered if it like came in when he came in and he just chased it out.
Maybe that's what happened.
But I don't know.
Could be.
I thought that was weird too.
Like, why are you shaking these people's chicken around? What the? I know chickens are annoying, but anyway.
We see him in the next scene eating the chicken raw.
Next 3 minutes or so is basically. The next 3 minutes or so is basically just 3 random people talking over each other while Joe teaches them how to cut up a deer with dirty pocket knife. It was a real deer. It looked like it.
It was.
So, yeah. So they were butchering a deer. Which, it's kind of helpful. I never realized that's how you get steaks. You just slice it down, lay it down.
Get the back strap
off.
Those butterfly steaks would be good, man.
Oh, that looked good.
Though I wonder about the freshness of this deer. I don't know.
Yeah,
because originally I thought the same thing. I was like, "This is like a roadkill deer."
Yeah, in the movie, probably not so fresh because it looks like he's been hacked at. But on set, oh yeah, dude, fry that bad boy up afterwards.
Joe asks if they're planning a craps game that night. Henry tells him to come by at 10 since they're making a birthday cake. He asks if they need anything since he's heading to the store. Wasn't he just at the store? Maybe this is the next day. Who knows? He just stopped in to ask if they planned on playing cards that night. And then, do phones not exist in this town? I mean, he has a phone. He's got a cell phone, but also he's like the richest guy in town. So.
Yeah.
I feel like in hindsight, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like all these little scenes were to show like what a good guy Joe is and how beloved he is by all the people, even though he's had a rough and tumble past and he's kind of a
he's just like, he helps everybody out.
Yeah, he helps out everybody in the town, and he's just a genuinely good dude.
I'm sure that's a very common thing in small towns. There's the guy everybody knows who helps out, and and he's a, I guess, small business owner, whatever you call him. He employs some people, and he just generally is a good guy in this shithole.
But he just stops in for like a second.
Yeah.
It's
I think he does. Doesn't he ask if they need anything or something like that?
Yeah,
like
I think he said he's going uptown to the so if they need anything from the store, let them know.
Maybe they don't have a car or something, and he's just checking in on them.
Yeah.
Well, they had cars outside.
Oh, you're right.
Did they run? We don't know.
That's the ultimate question,
That's the ultimate question.
That's such a common staple of these towns. Just 20 cars out in the front yard.
I got a car. It ain't running 20 years, but I got a car.
So anyway, he heads outside from this house and immediately gets blasted in the shoulder with a shotgun. The film just really takes a fucking turn right out.
Just another day in Texas.
The guy with scars on his face cackles and keeps shooting at him from the road while Joe pulls out a gun out of his truck and returns fire. Henry then pops outside with a pistol as Joe lights up a smoke. So, old drunk lady had a .38, Scarface has a shotgun, Joe has a revolver, Henry has a pistol, and none of them knew what adventures awaited them when they woke up that day, but by God, this is Texas, so you gotta be prepared. You can see it how they all live. I mean, it's not...
Every person there has a gun. I'm surprised that Joe doesn't give Gary a gun at some point. He gives him his lighter. He just hands him over his revolver.
Well, he ain't no real Texan, so...
I feel like he is. I feel like that kid was from Texas, right? He says he's from all over, but...
Yeah, he says he's from all
came
over.
from a different state.
Texas is huge.
Yeah,
that's true. Scarface flees from the scene, and I guess Joe decided not to give chase because we cut to Gary and his dad having a nice father-son bonding moment by a rickety-ass old bridge. Dad gets sloshed on the ground while Gary makes fun of him and tries to get his dad to go into town with him so they can get something to eat. And Dad proceeds to teach Gary about breakdancing because, why not?
I'm going to teach you a little about breakdancing. You ever see breakdancing before? You know what popping, you know what locking is on, do you, bud?
He had an illustrious breakdancing career in the 80s.
I'm guessing that's where the G-Dog jacket came from.
Could be, maybe he used to be like a street busker and he would break dance or something, or who knows.
So one fateful day when he slipped and broke his hip, that's when it went all downhill.
It went off the rails. Like an athlete losing their ability to play.
Yeah.
I get the sense that this scene was improv as well. I feel like they were just kind of making it up on the spot.
Like they were ripping,
And he was probably really drunk.
Probably, yeah.
So They just gave Tye Sheridan the direction of like, hey, try to get this guy to go into town with you. You be drunk as hell and not want to go to town. And then,
I can do that. Already there, David. I've been drinking since last night.
I didn't even go to bed last night. I was drinking all night long.
That's that voice, man. that hobo voice. We see Scarface toss the gun he shot Joe with off the bridge, and then Gary spots him. He heads over to see if he can score a ride from this guy, because nothing says I should see if this guy can give me a ride like a creepy-looking twinker taking huge swigs of whiskey while tossing a gun into a river. Yes, it just shows like Gary seen some shit and doesn't really...
Yeah.
Yes, by any means necessary.
Stuff that completely registers as abnormal to us is not even a thing in these people's lives. Like, yeah. Scarface says, shit, yeah, I'll give you a ride. But Gary messes up his probable ride to the grave by asking about the gun. Scarface tells Gary to look at his face, and then he says,
I went through a windshield at 4 o'clock one morning, and I don't give a fuck.
Which is this guy's version of the Joker's, you want to know how I got these scars? Because he repeats it like a dozen times after this.
This guy's claim to fame.
I went through a window one night.
Weird thing.
Yeah.
I guess that's to explain away the scars, but...
Right. And then it's also, like you said, it's claim to fame. He likes to brag about it.
I think it's his way of like making everybody think he's tougher than he actually is.
I'm hard.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. I'll do it again. He drunkenly gets way too close to this kid's face and says, I'll kill his ass if he ever slaps me again. Which I think he's referring to Joe, but how would he know that this kid who has any clue who Joe is? You know, like he just, or we as the audience, like, how do we know? I mean, I guess he shot Joe, so we know that he's got a vendetta against him.
I don't know why that was necessary for him to mention that in that scene, like that.
Like, I think it's because he's still drunk and he's still kind of living in the moment of everything that happened. Yeah. So he's just drunkenly rambling to this kid who has no fucking clue what the hell's going on.
He's got to sound tough to somebody. You know,
I guess.
He failed to kill Joe. He just shot him and then ran away.
Well, he wasn't even aiming at him.
Yeah, as we find out.
Then he asks if Gary has any sisters. Seems like a good dude.
It's normal conversation.
Gary tells him not to talk about his sister, and we get to watch a 15-year-old beat the shit out of this scarred-up loser and leaves him crying on the bridge. At least there's some justice as this dark as fuck reality. It's just, that was great. It was a good scene.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Watch this kid beat the shit
I like
out
how
of
he
this
looks
guy.
back at his dad, too. So, this is going to be you, old man. He starts beating the shit out of him.
Yeah.
His dad just watches. Doesn't seem to care.
That was one thing I was kind of upset about is he never really gets the upper hand on his dad at any point.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like that's realistic. Like,
yeah, that's true.
This is him taking out his aggression from his dad on this poor guy, but he can't bring himself to actually hit his dad.
He wants to kill his dad, but he can't, you know.
Yeah, because he's actually a good person, so he can't follow through with the desire to kill him or even hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Over at Joe's, he's busy pulling birdshot out of his shoulder rather than at the doctor, because who needs them when you're tough? Ain't how they do it over here in Grand Isle. In no city hospitals.
I got
just need to pour some whiskey on it and chug some whiskey and get in there with your pocket knife.
He got shot in the shoulder and he doesn't give a fuck.
He hears his dog going ape shit, and he finds a couple of young honeys outside with some beer. They let themselves in, and one of them makes out with Joe until Joe coughs like crazy. And if movies have taught us anything, you cough, you die. So this doesn't bode well for our hero.
If life has taught us anything, you cough, you die. Corona.
2020 has taught us anything.
Something I was going to mention it later on, but I feel it's good to like call it out early, is he's coughing pretty much from the start, like when we first see his character, and I think that he knew he was dying, and I think that kind of explains away some of his reckless behavior from here on out.
I got that too.
Yeah, he's kind of already knows that he's on his way, so he's sort of trying to die.
Yeah, I kind of I wondered about that too. You know, does he have lung cancer, or does he have some kind of cancer from the poison? Because they make it sound like he's been doing this for a long time, you know, hacking those trees.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
That shit can't be good for you to be inhaling.
Yeah,
so I kind of wonder the same thing. Does
he charges those cops and he runs from the cop again later on, and
well, the cop even has a conversation with him, like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, you know, you've always been reckless, but like this is a whole another level type of thing." You know?
Yeah,
why you trying so hard? The cops trying to, cops presenting as like why are you trying so hard to get back into jail? And Joe kind of is like detached from that that thought, and that's when I was like, oh no, he's trying to die. He's trying to die.
I think we can talk about it later if we get wrapped up, but I think it's more like, he sees there's no way out of this existence, so it's finally, it's the actual hopelessness sets in a very real way for him because he's dying and stuff. Like he's trying to at least go out on his terms or something,
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the skanks asks about his gunshot wound, that little thing. It's just like electrical taped some gauze to his shoulder. He explains that he slapped an asshole at the bar and he came back and shot him. Standard Texas stuff, really,
Did you guys figure out who these girls were? Were they from the brothel? Because that was what I originally thought.
But I thought like maybe the madam sent them there at first, like because he never got his stuff that he paid for, But it seems like they just want to come sleep with Joe because they.
I don't know. It was kind of vague. I thought originally like they were from the brothel, and that's why he's like asking about, because she says that she wants to stay with him, and he's like, well, what about so and so? But I didn't catch the name. But then at the same time, I thought, well, maybe he just has a history with them, like they dated, and then she's trying to make it work with him again, because the other chick just disappears, and then it's just the chick that hangs around him the rest of the time.
She says her mom. I think I call it out
her
here.
Mom kicked her out.
Yeah.
So she asked Joe if she can stay with him since there's some guy banging her mom named Frank.
Okay. So
I don't know where the other chick came from, but whatever.
It's just a friend, They travel back.
Go party.
There's also the girl that he sees in the Jeep later on, and I was confused as to who she was. I think she might have been somebody who was in the brothel, and she looks him up and down because she's upset that he killed her dog. Spoilers.
I thought it was more like I don't know. I thought there was more of a metaphorical thing going on there. Like they come up to a crossroads and then he sees her, and this may be a life he could have been living where he got married and settled down with somebody. And then they both turn and they go off on different, the Jeep goes the other direction and he turns down the other road and stuff. That was my takeaway from it. Cause otherwise we don't see them at any other point in the movie. So it's like, it's not like it's trying to establish that they had some kind of connection other than he was just seeing what could have been.
Yeah.
That was what I thought about it.
I like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because it's kind of at that point where he is kind of reflecting upon things.
Right. So it's like he bought a new truck and stuff, but like he's still alone and dying and in this shitty life. And, could have been a bald man in a Jeep with a wife. I think at one point also the sheriff mentions he has a kid.
Yes.
Daughter.
And
he does really mention that.
Even know that she gave birth. And
what if
that's
like
you got
his
another
daughter?
Grandkid or something?
Maybe
like
that's
that.
his daughter in the Jeep.
Maybe
Connie's his
the
daughter.
beers that showed up to his place.
Did you say maybe Connie's his daughter?
No, that actually makes sense. Maybe it is his daughter. Maybe that was what we were supposed to take from that. I don't know.
And they don't
Very
even say
vague.
a word to each other.
Yeah.
So to recap, Joe's Friday consisted of going to a brothel, buying an apple at a corner store, dissecting a deer with a pocket knife, getting shot, and banging a 20-something-year-old girl who decided to move in with him. And Nick Cage once said Joe is the character he most resembles in real life.
Nice.
Just keep that in mind.
Act 2, The Conflict.
Monday rolls around, and we finally get to see what a great worker and all-around stand-up guy Gary's dad is. 10 seconds after showing up for his first day, he screams at a kid to bring him some fucking water, then steals Beetlejuice's water 20 seconds after that, much to Gary's disdain. Joe watches on, disheartened, as Gary's dad bitches and moans about every aspect of the job, and he gets even more upset when dad refuses to join the crew on their state-mandated joint break.
I ain't gonna tell you what I was dreaming about, that what I had. I don't want to know, Junior. I don't want to know about your King Cobra, okay? Whatever you call it. Go get it? Don't go head first. I don't go head.
Such a curmudgeon this guy is,
was funny that they're just on lunch and just passing a joint. And Joe's like even smoking the joint.
I kind of feel like that type of work, that's the only thing that's really going to get you through that fucking day.
Yeah.
Junior confronts Gary's dad later when he catches him off smoking by himself rather than working. Beetlejuice and Friar Fuck argue for a bit about his work ethic, which is basically just an old guy mumbling and Junior screaming gibberish over him.
Who's trying to argue with who?
You ain't did shit all goddamn day. I'm trying to get you to working.
Man, you got about 600
You ain't
people
did shit all goddamn day. So you goddamn get to work.
It was so hard to figure out what was going on, like what they were actually saying. And my DVD didn't have subtitles, so I was...
neither did I.
Yeah, I
wanted
wanted to...
the same
I think
multi-pack
so.
movie DVD.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and see if the stream had subtitles, because I don't know if it did.
Just say gibberish.
Yeah, it probably would have just said gibberish, because you could have...
Shouting and transient.
They could have been argued about anything.
Speaking
Gary's dad walks off after Junior calls him a
Got you, motherfucker.
and Joe takes him and Gary home. Joe tells Gary he doesn't want them back since his dad is a complete fuck up, and Gary begs him to let him come back to work. Joe downs some whiskey in the truck, nice, and witnesses Gary's dad bitch slap his kid and take the money he earned that day. Joe decides not to intervene after Friar Fuck says,
Hey, you looking at?
and he takes off.
I thought that moment was pretty good telling.
Yeah.
He it instinctively opens the car door when he sees him beating him, but then he's like, it's not my problem.
Yeah. Not my not my job.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down to the corner store
It's
and polish my knob.
Joe gets involved in all this shit, even though he doesn't want to, but he is compelled to because he's a good guy at heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to fight. Yeah, he's trying to fight against it at this point, but it overtakes him.
And you can tell, Gary's a good person, and he doesn't want to, like we said, I think we said it offline, but it kind of had echoes of Sling Blade a little bit he could see that the kid was genuinely good, but it was in this terrible situation, and there wasn't really any escape for him. Aside from him murdering the father figure. Spoilers for Sling Blade.
Which I assume is what happened to Joe in his life too. Got stuck in this life.
Yeah. He does say that he sees the kid as he's nothing like me, but I see a kid who was left behind by society. But I could see this is how Joe probably grew up as well. Maybe not to this extreme, but
I think Joe doesn't think he's a good person, but it's that thing where he really he does see that the kid is nothing like him, but he is. We see it as an outside observer, but Joe doesn't feel that way.
Yeah,
right. Okay. Yeah, he wants to believe he's a bad guy, but he's not. Next, we see Gary's dad pop on a jacket that says G-Dog on the back. So from here forth, that's what we shall call him. That's the letter G and dog spelled D-A-A-W-G. FYI, according to the credits, his actual name is Wade, but I don't remember anybody at any point calling him that once throughout this entire film.
Yeah,
so G-Dog it is.
G-Dog.
G-Dog. Mom tells Gary it's not G-Dog's fault. He's a steaming pile of shit. He just goes through hard times. Then Gary says he's not going to stand by while he beats her the way he beats him. Meanwhile, Space Cadet Mom says he just needs to stand by his family, no matter what, because it's all he's got. So essentially, Mom is saying G-Dog can beat me all he wants as long as we all stay together. Something I think Dom would agree with because family.
You're nothing without family.
Nothing stronger than family. Later that night, Gary heads to Joe's to beg for his job back in the pouring rain. Gary waits outside of fear of Cujo the dog, while Joe and Connie enjoy domestic bliss. Joe lets Gary in and explains that he got the dog so no one would mess with him in a very cagey delivery.
Well, that's why I got the dog.
You don't really get a lot. Yeah, you don't get a lot of that in this film, but when you do, it's refreshing.
Yeah. There are more than I thought. When I first watched the movie, I didn't think there were any cagey moments. I thought there was fistful of dollars and that was pretty much it. But then when I rewatched it, there are quite a few here and there.
Yeah,
but they're sporadic.
Nice.
They're not. They're kind of nice to get. I would like to see
the dark.
I would like to see David Gordon Green actually do a comedy with Nick Cage.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Yes, that would be incredible. A stoner
That would be cool
flick.
to see. A stoner flick with Nick Cage.
Nick Cage.
Maybe you should have made that movie they never made where those people stole Nick Cage's Superman comic.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Yes.
About.
This is the sequel to Unbearable Weight.
I was going to say, with Unbearable Weight coming out, who knows?
Yeah, maybe they
will.
do go back to that and actually make that story.
That'd be awesome. Connie gets angry at Joe when he says he didn't come to the boy's aid when he saw his father beating him, and Joe says he can't get his hands dirty in every little thing because you know how I get. Which I think is foreshadowing. I don't know. I'm not an English lit major, but it seemed pretty clear that shit's gonna happen.
Yeah, this one kind of takes the turn that we expected Pig to maybe take, but never did. Which, yeah.
But in this story, it felt more fitting for it to take that turn. And Pig, I would have been like, "Oh Jesus, this kind of feels a little out of place."
Yeah, it would not have fit in Pig.
Yeah,
I don't think.
Gary says he wants to work, but he doesn't care if his daddy does. And Joe is impressed by his persistence. He runs him to the store and buys Gary and his family some food and tells Gary to meet him at the store each morning and he'll take him to work. Gary calls him sir, and Joe says, "You don't need to call me sir all the time. I'm your friend." So you get this bond with these two growing here, and Joe's caving, and he's finally given into that good guy nature that he's been trying to push himself away from, which I really enjoyed seeing their relationship blossom over the next, two acts.
I really feel like he sees Gary as a son, kind of the son he never had. And I'm assuming that he had a daughter because the sheriff says, you have a grandbaby. But it could have been his son or his daughter who had a grandbaby. But, I feel like film logic, they're setting up that it was a girl.
Yeah, I walked away with the same impression that he had a daughter.
So yeah. That's why I'm starting to think maybe the girl in the Jeep was his daughter.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. Back home, Gary's predicament weighs heavy on Joe's mind, and he tells Connie there's nothing he can do, and he hates it. We see a montage of Gary giving his sister and mom the food Joe bought for him, intercut with his dad picking through garbage to find food like a dog or a G-dog. And shots of Joe back at work with Gary on his crew. Oh, also G-Dog breakdancing in the street like three dudes partying in a Motel 6 room after robbing some gangbangers.
We're family.
Just dancing.
Just need a ketchup bottle, some mustard. Make it lit.
Make it lit, dude. Joe says what keeps him alive and out of jail is restraint, and goes on to say when he looks at Gary, he sees someone who is nothing like him, but rather a child folks left behind, but he has faith that there's a reason for all of this. We see the crew at work, and Junior again badmouths his truck, and Gary asks if he could buy it if Joe gets a new one. Joe tries to talk him out of it, since it's a pile of junk, but when the kid persists, he says he'll take $900 for it. Okay, here we go. This is the most single depressing, brutal, and fucked up scene we've ever talked about on this show by far. We see G-Dog eye an old wino with a bottle of liquor in a paper bag shuffling down the street. He follows this poor dude down to a riverbank while looking around to see if anybody saw him follow.
I thought it should be playing the music from Dawn of the Dead. Or sorry, Day of the Dead, and they're like showing all those abandoned Florida towns at the beginning with all the zombies just shuffling around.
Hello,
yeah,
anybody there?
It's just shuffling, two homeless guys shuffling along.
That's definitely what it felt like.
I resisted comparing them to zombies, but
it's what it is. I mean, it's a good argument, They're kind of soulless.
I mean, that's kind of
fucking happened.
What you see in like if you go downtown Tenderloin in San Francisco, you see these junkies just wandering around like they're zombies, man. And this is alcohol, so it's like one extreme. Everything in moderation, but like if you go off the rails, this is what can happen to you. You're basically just a zombie.
Yeah, you're just moving off of muscle memory and the instinct at that point.
Yeah.
Well, he asked the wino for directions, and then G-Dog gives him a sob story about his wife, who he says is in the hospital with cancer. He sits down with the wino, asks the guy what he's drinking, and after some idle chit-chat, graphically bashes his head in with a piece of metal he found on the ground. It's fucking horrifying stuff and just heartbreaking, too.
Yeah, and they show every bit of it.
Yeah, they don't pull away.
It is brutal. Brutal.
It eliminates any possibility of there being any redemption for Joe's dad. Like this is Gary's dad. Or sorry, Gary's dad. Yeah, this guy is a piece of shit. There's no redeeming qualities about him. Yeah. This obviously is not his first time killing somebody.
Just like over a bottle of rosé or whatever the hell he was drinking.
Yeah.
It was probably like, yeah.
It made me wonder, like, if he had killed her, or if this was like the first time he just had finally reached his tipping point in desperation.
I feel like
get drunk. You don't think it was the first time?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think that's why they have to keep moving.
So
it's because shit like this keeps happening. Yeah, he keeps getting into situations where they got to keep moving and moving and moving.
Man.
Then he steals the guy's liquor and a couple bucks out of his pockets. So imagine getting your head bashed in for a $10 bottle of booze. That's the guy. It's just fucking sad. The guy's already down on his luck. He's fucking drunk, and this is how his life ends. Some fucking
just
other drunk
senseless
piece
man.
of shit. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, it's never going to get solved. Like, cops aren't going to really investigate a homeless guy who got his head bashed in. No.
Like,
I feel like this kind of stuff actually happens a lot on the street.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
I think that this movie, part of the compulsion to make it was to kind of point this kind of stuff out. Like this shit is happening all the time, and nobody pays attention to it. These are the forgotten people of the world, really.
Yeah, it really felt like a modern John Steinbeck story.
Yeah,
Steinbeck wrote about that a lot. That's why I like this so much. But it was
great comparison.
Steinbeck wrote about that extensively in the books. Just how the super American poor live. Super poor Americans, I should say, not super American poor. It sounds weird, but
yeah. Well, he seems to have at least some remorse about it for a second. Then he kisses the dead guy on the head and leaves to do some drunken breakdancing or something. We cut to Joe getting tossed in a bar, but he's interrupted by our old pal Scarface and his pals. Joe lets him rattle on for a minute about how he could have killed him with this shotgun, but he let him live. Also, he says he was actually aiming for the trees and only meant to scare him. I don't remember there being any fucking trees anywhere near Joe.
I can't imagine this drunk, scarred up loser actually being able to hit him from that distance with a shotgun. I mean,
yeah, well, it was birdshot, so
it was.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's birdshot, so it's
fire in a general direction.
Just aim.
And it looked like he only got hit by a couple of pellets when he was pulling them out. So
Joe keeps it together until Scarface asks where Gary lives, which prompts him to bash Scarface's head against the bar and nearly add to the scars on his face with a broken beer bottle. After the excitement, I guess Joe needs to take the edge off, so he heads to the brothel from earlier. But wouldn't you know it, that damn dog cock blocks him again. He calls the dog an asshole, storms off home, gets his own dog, brings it back, and lets Cujo take care of that cock blocking dog once and for all.
This is another just like, what the fuck, man? This is just some brutal, just off the rails shit.
Yeah. I think my take on it is that dog is a representation. Now, I'll get into metaphors and blah, blah, blah. English student. That dog is a representation of the darkness that he keeps inside of him. That's why he hates it so much. He can't stand to look at it. He hates the dog and stuff. And it's chained up in this brothel or whatever, just like he keeps it inside of himself, trying to be a good person. And this is the point in the movie where it turns. He brings his dog. Dog is his current version of himself. His dog is. Where it's a vicious dog, but also it's friendly, keeps it, on a leash. And he even mentions like the dog wouldn't have barked at you because he knows that you're not doing anything wrong or whatever when I think the two girls show up or when Gary shows up.
Yeah, when Gary comes in.
So it's like Joe has this sense where he knows if somebody's really good, he's not going to go off on him.
The American Bulldog is white. you know, not white and black, but like, you know,
But yeah,
general depictions of evil and light.
It's
Know,
kind of
angels
modeled.
and darkness.
And then darkness.
But it's a brindle or whatever.
Darkly lit too.
Yeah, and the brothel dog's black, and then even his dog is like white, but also brownish, like gray, white. It's not full white or whatever. But he brings his dog over. It fights the brothel dog, kills it finally, and I think that's the turning point in the movie where he finally is like, I'm done with this shit. I'm like, he lets his dog loose, and the dog eventually gets loose and stuff, and that's the representation of him letting this dark side back out so that it can, you know, see what happens in the story. I don't want to spoil it till we get to it, but it's like, you know, I guess letting his darkness come out to do some good in the world. Maybe. That's the way to
I agree, because right after this, you're right, that's when the story takes a turn, and I think the true Joe comes out. It's this gray area. It's this gray man who is good and bad, but uses, you know, good more than bad, and is trying to use that dark side to do good. So I think you're right. I think that was a metaphor for what's about to happen. Yeah, which is why they graphically show it.
I really like that. I didn't even think about that. That's awesome.
Because I was like trying to figure out, like, well, he likes dogs. He likes this. Like, why does he hate this fucking? Why does this dog bark at him all the time in 7? It's because that's inside of him. He's got this part of himself that he hates. That's always gnawing at him and barking at him and trying to get out. And he finally, you know, maybe he triumphs over it and then decides to use it for good, which is what happens later on in the movie. And that's the representation of bringing his dog to kill the other dog. But that was my interpretation.
I like that a lot.
Me too. Well, Joe lets his dog loose in the brothel so it can rip the asshole dog's throat out while he gets a blowjob upstairs. Again, this movie just took a fucking turn. Also, we see a guy banging a girl in a room while some dude stands right outside the door lifting weights for some reason. It's not important to the story. I just wanted to point that out. And I'm not going to lie.
Very David Lynchian. Weird for the sake of weird.
You know, now that I think about it, maybe this whole brothel is just a representation of Joe's psyche. Like, everything that goes on in this place
could be
is like a metaphor for him and his inner demons and shit.
Could be.
So that's why it's just so weird, and like this guy pumping iron and banging a chick and
banging
stuff. It's just this dark place that he goes to every once in a while to let his demons out.
I really thought when they cut to the dude banging the chick, it was supposed to be Nick banging that hooker. Then I was like, nice. And then it shows him walking upstairs. I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I was like, man, we finally get to see Nick Cage's ass.
I know. I was like, oh yeah.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. And then I had a
pants down. Let's
pants
go.
Back on. Disappointment. Joe asks his prostitute, do you have any pets? What's your cat's name? What do you feed it? What's your favorite color? And tells her to blow him. Less awkward than the scene in Dog Eat Dog.
Tourmaline? You like Tourmaline? You ever been to Nice? This one was so like it was just weird. It was like he was trying to get to know her real quick.
Yeah, maybe.
You have any pets?
Yeah,
I had a cat.
Like, it could be, so he just feels better about himself for what he's doing.
Exactly. Yeah. She's a person. She's a person.
Repeat to yourself.
He gets a tug to the sensual sounds of his dog brutally killing the other dog, and presumably the guy next door getting it on while a guy lifts weights in the hallway. Joe takes off with his bloody dog, then runs from a cop trying to pull him over. He tries to run the cop off the road and only stops when he's cut off by another patrol car blocking the highway. He jumps out of the car and threatens the other cop immediately before opening the back of his truck and letting his dog run free. He again instigates some shit with the cops who know him by name. He tells them to put their guns down and fight him like men since he's just one dude.
I'm just one dude. Come on.
This is America. I'm sorry. I thought this was America. That's what it reminded me of. We see G-Dog come back home from crushing a guy's head. Just wanted to remind you what he's been up to since he left. He asks Gary if he thinks Joe will take care of him and explains that he's not his daddy. I'm your daddy. And the one taking care of him, not Joe. He's been a great dad up until this point of the movie, so I have no reason to think otherwise.
Yeah.
You think he's gonna take care of you? I'm his daddy.
G-Dog steals some of Gary's money that he earned working for Joe and beats him in front of his mother and sister. Gary says he'll beat him up the way he did that guy on the bridge, and G-Dog puts a knife to Gary's face before saying he's going to come back for the rest of his son's money later. Shaking down your son beats bashing winos' heads in, I guess. Not as bad.
I guess. It's easier work.
I don't got any money.
You
got food. You got food. You got no money, but you got food.
It's more honest work.
You got some green beans in a can. Obviously,
you got money.
You got tons of money.
We see Joe in jail where he begs for a cigarette from his buddy, who is also the sheriff of this charming town, I guess. He tells Joe they have him on assaulting an officer, DUI, and resisting arrest, but I guess he can just walk out scot-free because he's friends with the sheriff. I hesitate to say this, but thank God Joe's white, because he'd have been dead 8 times by now, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. I tried not to say it, but it's like, God, if he was Hispanic, if he was African American, yeah, he would have been shot immediately. Yeah. Like the second he got out of that truck, they would have shot him. Probably would have shot him from the road while he was driving away from the cops.
Yeah. They would have just dumped rounds into the truck as he's driving.
God. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality of America.
Yeah, it could be that. It could also be that
don't
they
put
know
it on
who
us.
He is.
Don't put it on.
They know Joe.
It's not us saying it. It's America saying it.
Or it was like Joe was trying to suicide by cop at that point.
That's
like
he was. I took it as he was. He was trying to get killed, but
they got out and charged him and shit.
Yeah. That's why he went to the brothel and just got his rocks off one last time and let his dog fucking kill the dog he hates. So he's just like he's done.
Yeah.
He's done.
He can't do it anymore in this world.
But he kind of takes a turn after this, so which is what we'll get to next.
Act 3: The Resolution.
Joe reports his murder dog missing to the dog catchers or something, and Gary pops by for a visit since he heard Joe got in as much trouble for assaulting a police officer as most people get for stealing bubblegum. Just like what? Assaulting an officer, resisting arrest, and a DUI, and he just walks right out after. He didn't even spend the night.
Life in Texas, bro. Life in Texas.
Yeah. Gary says Junior told him Joe went to the penitentiary once, and Joe explains that he did 29 months for assaulting a police officer. Wait, so he got 29 months for doing the same thing he just did and got nothing for?
Yeah, but that was in the big city.
I guess. Pays to befriend the sheriff, I guess. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing so the cops know him by name because he's friends with the sheriff. Yeah, and the sheriff also says that he used to be. Yeah, it's a small town.
Yeah, I feel like they're like old friends, like childhood friends.
Yeah. He says that he was worse than him at some point. Yeah,
they make it sound like they grew up together.
Yeah.
And the sheriff says like he was 13 the first time he showed up in the police station. So like he's been getting in trouble with the law his whole life, basically.
Yeah. Joe says he was pulled over by a trio of cops, and one of them had a personal issue with him about some girl or something. So he beat the shit out of all 3 of them. So they tried to shoot him. Why would you do such a crazy thing? Joe says one of the cops went for his gun, so Joe grabbed it and inadvertently blew the cop's kneecap off. Happens to everybody, yeah.
If I had a nickel for every time that happened to me.
So that's pretty similar to everybody's high school experience. Joe asks Gary to help him look for his dog, and Joe lets the kid drive while they both get drunk. The South is just a lawless wasteland, I briefly lived in the South for about 2 years, and that happened like 4 different times where I got into the truck with somebody. It's always a truck. Got into a truck with somebody, and they fucking just opened a beer while driving. And I was like,
yeah, they used to have. It used to be legal to have open containers in Texas. I think they changed that law. But yeah, it used to be legal to have open container.
What a scary reality.
You're not supposed to drink it while you drive, but it could be open in the vehicle.
Yeah.
Joe
for passengers to drink.
Yeah,
it's just
that's
Bud
true.
Light.
I remember at one point in my life that actually was a thing. Like you could drink in the back seat or something. Joe tells Gary to keep his eyes peeled, and Gary asks for the cops or for the dog, and Joe says both. Remember, Joe is the role model in this film.
But he's a better role model than the dude's dad.
Much better dad. I'm your daddy.
Then Joe whips out his lighter, flips it open, and says, "You hear that? That's the sound that gets the hookers excited."
They hear that.
Yes, I do.
Because they know you have cash if you're carrying a pop-up lighter. It's like
that's the line
fancy
you read as the baby's on the screen in the background.
It's like a fancy little Zippo lighter.
Zippo, yeah.
Dink.
Though it's like small, like thin. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, similar to like a Zippo. They pull off to an abandoned boatyard cemetery of some sort where Joe teaches Gary how to make a cool face. He tells him to make a face like he's in pain and then smile through it, which explains like half of the faces he makes in Mandy.
I was going to say Ghost Rider, but yeah.
He tells Gary he has it made because just think about all the beautiful girls you're going to fuck. Okay.
Good point.
That's all you need.
They drunkenly head to an old lady's house for a minute. Then Joe hits on a woman on a bike, and Gary suggests they go back to where Joe left the dog when he fought the cops. And lo and behold, they find the dog sitting there waiting for him.
He just showed him the ropes, how to be Joe, you know. Just butt into random people's houses and say hi and flirt with everyone and just be the good guy.
Yeah. I get the feeling that those weren't actors either.
No.
In those scenes, they might have just been people he just ran into. Like while they were filming, they just ran into these people on the road.
Yeah, that's how that lady is really like. Yeah, you be careful with that guy.
Yeah, there's the kids drinking right in front of them. Thank God he found his dog, because what if the brothel gets another dog? I mean, what is Joe supposed to do then? Joe stops Gary from approaching Cujo because he's afraid he'll hurt him, but Murder Dog can tell Gary is Joe's pal, so she won't rip his throat out. Gary says the dog has a lot of scars, but Joe says,
Yeah, but all the others are dead.
It's really kind of it's in his blood type delivery.
It's in his blood.
He's got it.
Milton then comes out of the bushes.
Wiping a blade off.
He's got scars too.
Oh, hey, old sport.
Hey, old sport.
You're down in Texas.
Joe drives Gary home and thanks him for helping him find his dog. And either Nicolas Cage's acting is incredible in this scene, or he's actually drunk, because he gives the best drunk performance I think I've ever seen on film. I mean, it's just pitch perfect. I mean, the slurring, the like breathing, everything is like, he feels like he's really drunk on beer. As I think we've all been there at some point.
Specifically beer drunk too.
Yes,
like
yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I feel like it was either, he did a hell of a job acting it, or he was actually, they'd been chugging beers the whole time they were shooting.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but it feels so authentic that I feel like he was genuinely drunk. Joe tells Gary he's a good worker and to tell him if anybody messes with him because he'll
fuck him up.
See, I can't do it. He was amazing.
Yeah, he nailed it.
Joe then gives Gary his lighter, so he can catch the attention of all the hookers from here on out. Joe then tries to light a cigarette and realizes he doesn't have his lighter anymore. He heads down the road and spots G-Dog himself on the road and asks him for a light. Friar Fuck jumps in the truck, and Joe tells him his son is a hard worker, to which Head Basher says, he's the hardest fucking work I've ever done in my life. Since Gary is clearly the asshole in that relationship between him and his dad. Joe tells him Gary is smart, since he's saving his money, and that he's planning to buy his truck from him. And G-Dog says, Gary ain't so smart. He don't know nothing, and neither do you. Joe then grabs him by the neck and tells him if he finds out something happened to Gary, he's going to whip whoever's ass had something to do with it. Then he tells him to get the fuck away from him before he knocks out whatever teeth he has left.
It ain't much.
See, that felt like he was... So he like put some water on his face or something to sober up, and then he grabs him by the throat. But he felt like he was actually genuinely sober in that scene, whereas he was drunk in the previous scene. I think he was actually drunk in the previous scene and not drunk in this scene. But I don't know. Hell of a job by Nick Cage in that.
Yeah.
Later, we see Joe and Gary talking at the family shanty where Joe says, you know, this place is condemned, right? You can't just pull boards off the windows and call it home. He asks Gary why he doesn't just do his own thing because he's old enough and he's smart enough to leave Head Basher and Space Cadet Mom behind. And Gary explains that he stays so he can take care of his mute sister and his mom. But his sister, by the looks of her, has been through some shit over the years. But she's gone completely mute, probably from trauma, all the horrifying things she's had to experience in her life so far. Gary says he's ready to buy Joe's truck, but Joe tells him to keep his money, and then he gives him the truck. In town, we see Scarface hook up with G-Dog, and they strike up a mutually beneficial deal of some sort. Aw, it's nice that they finally found each other. I was hoping these characters would get together. Match made in hell. Joe heads home in his brand newish 90s pickup truck. But he gets pulled over along the way by one of the cops. I think it was one of the cops that he assaulted earlier. I don't know. This is the new man that's working for him. I feel like he was the one who was trying to pull him over initially in that previous scene.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But I don't remember for sure. The cop tries to have Joe take a breathalyzer, but Joe refuses it and guns it. Again, he would have been shot immediately if, well, you know, yeah. But like, you know, the audacity to have him do a breathalyzer when he just assaulted police officers like a couple of days earlier. Anyways, a cop chases him down and cuts him off. So Joe jumps out of the truck and screams at the cop, charges him while a cop who's half his size has his gun drawn. He smacks him in the face and then punches him and puts him in a headlock. He asks the cop if he's going to shoot him in the back when he drives off, and then Joe just takes off while the cop looks for his gun in the bushes. Like, come on, man.
Bitch slaps the guy.
You don't play by society's rules.
Maybe he was just waiting for that kid to shoot him. And maybe he was even genuinely disappointed by the kids. Like,
and then he's like, "You pussy! Couldn't even shoot a guy who's obviously trying to harm you." You know?
Yeah. And Nick Cage is a big, imposing dude. Especially, I think this guy must have been, probably like 5'6" or something. He was a little guy.
Yeah, he's tiny compared to Nick.
Having somebody twice your size charge you, I would shoot him.
Yeah.
He gets home only to find the sheriff sitting out front, and he gives Joe a stern talking to over some drinks. What the fuck kind of justice system does this town have? The sheriff tells Joe he heard Joe has a new grandbaby, and Joe says it's news to him since apparently he doesn't talk to his kid at all anymore. We never really get concrete evidence of like, we don't see his kid or anything unless it was the girl in the Jeep, which I'm kind of feeling like it was. But there's no baby in that Jeep.
I don't think it was.
So I have no idea. Joe finds a note from Connie, the girl who's been staying with him, saying she's decided that it's time for her to move out since Joe won't take her to fancy restaurants and open the door for her or something. It was like she was like talking about a dream where they got dressed up nice and they went to a restaurant and he opened the door for her, and that's like the dream of dreams for her in life.
Well, look at where she grew up.
I guess.
Can you blame her for wanting to just have a normal life?
I dreamed that you took me to an Applebee's and opened the door for me. Put on a button-up shirt.
We went to Dave and Buster's.
To Dave, but there's no way a Dave and Buster's is anywhere near that town. Joe says "You got a new man working for you, don't you?" And Joe says the cop was looking for someone to fuck with, so he taught him a lesson. Then the sheriff says, "I'll have his ass shuffling paper for a while till he learns to cool down a little bit." So wait. The cop who pulled Joe over for not having tabs on his truck was being a hothead by asking a guy who just beat up some cops a few days ago to take a breathalyzer, and now he's being reprimanded for almost being killed by a suspect who was evading arrest.
Yes. You shouldn't have meddled.
Texas law is confusing, man.
Think how much paperwork he had to do, you know? He's just got to teach the new guys that not to get involved in this shit, and they won't have to work. So, you know. It's a real lesson.
If we went around pulling over every drunk asshole in this town,
we'd
all
have to
be in
pull over
trouble.
everybody.
They only got like 2 drunk tanks in the whole jail cell. You know,
Yeah.
the whole building.
Half
They
the force is
can't arrest
drunk.
everybody.
Doesn't the sheriff drink some alcohol in this scene too?
Yeah, I think he drinks with
Just
with
drinks a
Nick.
little bit, takes off.
You
You'd
know,
have to pull
Nick
him
pours
over too.
heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Connie tries to give him a drink earlier, and he's like, "I can't even taste
Can't
that."
taste it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciated that. I was like, yeah, he's a
That's
real
realistic.
alcoholic. Tastes like soda pop.
The sheriff asked Joe why he'd want to go back to the penitentiary because he can't keep going to folks' houses, killing their dogs, fist fighting cops because the judge won't put up with it. He didn't have to. They share a smoke, and the sheriff gives him a little nice pat on the shoulder, and that's the end of that. That's it. That's... Later that night, Gary shows up at Joe's door and tells him that his dad beat him up, took his money, and stole the truck that he just bought off of Joe. So he needs to borrow Joe's new truck so that he can go kill him. Joe comforts Gary and tells him he knows Gary could kill his dad, but he doesn't need to because, you know, he's going to. No, he says Gary and his mom and his sister can come stay with him and he'll keep them safe. So Joe is like fully embraced taking this kid in, you know. Which is pretty huge for a guy who's, you know, seems like he prefers to be alone, but you can tell he genuinely cares about Gary to the point where he'd let the whole family move in with him, leave the
They're drinking buddies now.
hillbilly homeboy on the street. But Gary drops the bomb that Friar Fuck has his sister and is planning to let Scarface and his buddies do some super unsavory stuff to her. Another dark as hell turn in this movie. Joe asks him where they took her, and he tells Gary to meet him outside before grabbing his gun. We cut to Dorothy, which is Gary's sister, in the back of Joe's old truck. Head basher tells Scarface it'll be $30 each to rape his daughter. So Scarface pays him, jumps in the back, and for some reason puts on a filthy Bugs Bunny mask. Just when you thought it couldn't get more fucked up. What is with the Bugs Bunny mask? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm friendly.
You like funny faces?
Like funny faces. I went through a window at 4 o'clock. Joe and Gary pull in, and Joe tells him if anything happens to take his truck and run and get the sheriff. Joe fires a shot in the air and pulls Bugs Buggery out of the back of the old truck. He holds Scarface and his buddy at gunpoint while Gary rescues his sister and then drives off in Joe's new truck. Joe tells Scarface's buddy, "I don't know you. Run before I shoot you." But rather than be thrilled to be alive, Scarface's buddy shoots Joe in the back just before Joe can blow Bugs Bunny's heads off. He like tells him to look up at the moon, and and he's about to shoot him, and then he gets shot in the back. He shoots Joe again, this time in the leg, and from the ground, Joe shoots and kills him. Scarface says, "If you want to shoot me, go ahead and shoot me. I went through a windshield, and I don't give a fuck." So Joe obliges him and shoots him in the head before he can even finish saying that. Thank God. Mm-hmm. Joe uses his last ounces of strength to limp towards Gary's dad, who is chilling on the bridge. We saw earlier that Gary beat up this same dude on, I think this is like 3 times that we've seen this bridge. While blood is pouring from a wound in his side, the one where he got shot in the back. Friar Fuck gives him a look, and Joe fires his last bullet in his direction, but misses, because he's probably seeing double at this point. Gary's dad asks, "Are you my friend?" And then he jumps off the bridge to his death. Not really sure what the "Are you my friend" line was about, but Joe collapses on the bridge, and sometime later, the cops arrive with Gary, and the sheriff asks, "What have you done, Joe?" And then Gary gives Joe a tearful hug, and Joe dies. We cut to the future where we see Gary driving Joe's brand newish 1990s truck with his trusty murder dog by his side. He just kind of took Joe's life over at that point. We see the same framing as the very first shot in the film where Gary was arguing with it, or telling his dad that you fucked up again and we're going to have to move on again and they're going to beat your ass, all that stuff. But this time it's a guy offering Gary a job working the newly replanted land where Joe and his men killed all the trees. That was actually supposed to be the same land, just a little bit in the future, which I didn't know that until I read kind of a breakdown of the film. So I don't think it's clear in the movie that it's the same land.
I did because the guy, I got it because the guy was saying he knew Joe, like he was the one that hired Joe to clear the trees out, you know, from the land or whatever. So,
okay. Yeah. The new boss says, "The work is hard, but if you worked for Joe, you'll do fine." Gary smiles, asks when he can start, and they get to work. The end. So his life is obviously, things are much better for him. He's earning a paycheck, doesn't have to deal with his drunk delinquent dad stealing all his money. He's probably providing for his mom and his sister at this point. And, now he's kind of following in Joe's footsteps and probably will end up. He said he could lead the next part of their planting or whatever if he does well on this. So he'll become the Joe of that crew.
Mm-hmm. Not Beetlejuice?
But in a more positive way. Like,
yes,
it's one of the things I really liked about the movie. Joe was doing work, his team, but they could only destroy. Like they were doing, their job was to kill the trees. It was like they were doing sort of good work, but not really. Like they're killing a bunch of trees just so they can bulldoze them and plant new ones and stuff. So, it's sort of indicative of Joe himself. Like he can do good things, but only by doing bad things. So that's just the cycle that he's trapped in this whole microcosm of society. Yeah. So Gary getting the job at the end is now he's planting the trees. Like he's not stuck in the same cycle. He's actually doing something constructive and proactive and actually helping, the new generation grow and flourish. He's not just destroying old things.
Yeah, it's a great point.
and it looks like when they're talking, it's early morning, the sun is rising. That's what I took away. So I took this is the dawn of a new age. Yeah.
And it's because of Joe. Because Joe was the one that laid the groundwork, both for this physically, like they cleared out the trees and stuff to lay the work for this, but also symbolically, like he laid the groundwork for Gary to now take over the mantle and have a better life, through it.
I guess when you see Joe for the first time, it's pouring down rain and
it's pouring down
storming
rain
and stuff. Yeah.
Sunshine here, early morning, sun's rising, and on new beginnings. That's what I took away at the end.
Yeah.
It's a lot of symbolism in this movie. Yeah. I guess it based on a book, so there were a lot of metaphors, a lot of symbolism.
I know I've said it before, but I'm a big fan of David Gordon Green's work. I mean, Joe is just another in a long line of examples as to Green's range as a director. His work with Danny McBride on Eastbound and Down, Vice Principals, and Righteous Gemstones is some of the funniest stuff to ever grace the small screen. And films like Pineapple Express and the new Halloween trilogy and Prince Avalanche show that the guy is an absolute genre chameleon. So why not do like I did and build your own David Gordon Green collection by heading over to Loved Again Media. Loved Again Media has a massive collection of lightly used titles to choose from, starting at just $4 for DVDs as well as $5 for Blu-rays and TV box sets. And if you use our promo code 1CAGE at checkout, you'll get an extra 15% off. Start building your collection today at lovedagainmedia.com.
We have a Coppola questions before we move on.
I don't have a ton, but a few things kind of struck me. Is why did Joe feel the need to go to a brothel? Obviously, he can get with women, and women are interested in him, and he's a handsome, well-liked dude. So why does he need to go to a brothel to begin with? Is it just for that symbolism so that we can get all that?
That's my takeaway. Like, it's, again, maybe that's why I'm thinking that brothel is just a representation of his inner self, like everything that goes along in there. Because it does seem weird when you think about it. Like, these chicks, Connie comes to sleep with him of her own volition or whatever, and he doesn't have to go pay hookers for blowjobs and stuff, but he does. So maybe it's part of the deeper. I think the character of Joe is more like he doesn't see himself as being good or worthy of anything. Like he does a bunch of good and everybody loves him and stuff, but it's like he's almost like he just has to take on all the shittier aspects of this society in order to help the society. It's almost like he's a sacrificial lamb in that respect, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which sort of, I think, keys into the whole story of him eventually sacrificing himself to make things better. Gets rid of this Scarface guy and this other guy who's raping kids, and helps Gary escape and gets his scumbag dad off this earth. So it's like one last act. So maybe the brothel is that representation. Like he still has to partake of the seedier side of sex and relationships. Just because it's there. It's part of this small town environment, and he has to. I don't know what I'm trying to say. If that makes sense. Like,
no, I think I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I
like
get
that.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Like, he has to absorb all of these shitty things about this world that he's trapped in, because that's what his character is.
Because he's not even disconnected from the hooker. He's trying to get her to know her.
Yeah.
Before everything. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it was just a tool to show, metaphorically, the Joe. These are the layers that are within him.
Yeah, he knew the madam really well. Like, he had obviously been there many, many times, and probably friends with her genuinely. And
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's get this one. I don't think we really answered it, but I was going to ask, how does Scarface know Gary knew Joe? But I don't think we really need to dive into that.
I don't think he did. I think he was just drunkenly rambling to the kid.
Yeah. So none of the prostitutes were mad about Joe letting his dog kill theirs, and no one in the house stopped the dogs from fighting. Like, it didn't seem like there was anybody else in the house except for the two dudes upstairs with the one prostitute, one of the guys lifting weights for no reason, and this other prostitute. But like, I don't know, are they all just so drugged up or whatever that they didn't even notice it was happening? It just seemed weird to me. But that's why the cops, I think, were after him, as they called the cops about him killing the dog. It was weird to me that nobody came out to, like, I mean, you would think that they would have a connection with that dog.
Yeah.
Right. No one came to stop it. But
I
also you don't really want to get between two big dogs fighting.
Yeah, true.
I was going to say, also, I would not want to try to interject myself into that, because you're going to get fucked up.
So, I mean, yeah, I totally see that. But, like, nobody was, like, screaming to, like, get him to stop the dogs. It just there was no human interaction between that dog fight.
He's a paying customer. You don't interrupt the transaction. Once the transaction's over, then you go take it up with him.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't make sense if you look at it from a literal standpoint, but again, if you look at it from a metaphorical standpoint, it makes perfect sense for why it happened.
Yeah. This one I hesitate to ask, but I just do you think Joe stopped Scarface before he started raping Dorothy?
Yes,
that is a question that I had, but he still had his clothes on, I think, when he pulled him out of the
He did have his pants down,
I think he did. I know it seemed like he was fully clothed. Everything was up. Because he even says
I tried
it's
to
not,
see.
because they were both sitting up, and it seemed like they were still kind of in the beginning stages of him being back there, and he said something to Joe like, "It's not what you think," or I wasn't planning on that. So I don't think it got to that part. I think there were things that had been done, but it wasn't full on.
Yeah.
That was like one of my questions. Is like, so is this something that the dad had done before?
Yeah, I wonder about that.
Or is this like spur of the moment kind of thing?
And for $30, like, oh my God.
I mean, he killed a guy over a bottle of wine.
That's true, yeah.
It's like, is that the trauma that this young woman went through, which is why she went mute?
That's what I figured had been happening
God.
From a very early age. I guess we already talked about it, but it was like, what was the deal with the Jeep, the lady in the Jeep, you know? But I guess it's supposed to be open to interpretation of whatever you want, you know? That was my takeaway from it, so.
I like your idea of he was kind of at a crossroads.
It's just a representation of a different life that he never had and never will have because, you know.
Yeah. Or it could have been.
I guess one of the other questions is he actually dying, which I think is.
I think he was.
Never overtly said, but made pretty clear that that's based on his actions and nobody else really understanding why he's taken this turn. Like even the sheriff's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you know, you've been in trouble with the law, but it's probably always like bar fights or whatever. Like, you know, it made it seem like running cops off the road and trying to get them to shoot him was way out of character for this guy who does a lot of bad stuff. So, I
got the sense that he was dying. And, you know, I guess another interpretation of that scene with the Jeep is that it could have been like he sees his daughter in this girl or he, I don't know, based on the fact that he was with a 20-something-year-old girl in the previous scene, could have been his, you know, he sees a potential partner. I have no idea. But yeah.
Yeah, it could have been that too. Or he just was thinking of his daughter, you know.
Yeah.
She reminded him of her.
I kind of wish that we would have had some sort of resolution to that. Like maybe he talks to his daughter on the phone or something. But you know, I guess there wasn't really time. He does try and call Connie at one point to try and get back with her, or like, you know, he calls her baby. So I guess he genuinely does care about Connie, even though he kind of makes it seem like he doesn't for a lot of that. But yeah,
it's time to keep track. Here are the final stats.
All right, so for curses, we're kind of mild on the curses in this movie. Actually, no, we weren't. Never mind.
I was going to say, I felt like when he talked, there were a lot of cursing.
There were 37 total curses in this movie, which actually puts it up on the higher end behind Bad Lieutenant and Weatherman, which had 60 and 40, respectively. So this is third for total number of curses. I think they were just a little bit less intense than tons of fucks, which is what other movies have had. Yeah. Anyway, so we had 4 uses of hell, 4 uses of goddamn or goddammit, 8 uses of shit, 7 uses of ass, and 5 uses of asshole. One of them's the dog. You got it in the Cagiest Moments. That dog is an asshole. 9 uses of fuck, which is pretty low, actually. That puts it behind pig, which had 2, and bringing out the dead, which had 2. And the next one is dog eat dog with 15. So, or sorry, die in the light with 14. So 9 is actually on the lower end of things, but more of a reserved performance, I guess. So that brings a total of 37 for this movie and a grand total of 408 curses so far.
Runtime. This was 117 minutes. Puts it kind of upper middle, a little bit longer than Color Out of Space, but right below Gone in 60 Seconds, Mandy, Bringing Out the Dead, Bad Lieutenant, National Treasure, and Face Off. Face Off is a full 22 minutes longer than this film.
God damn.
And even this movie felt kind of long. I mean, it's almost 2 hours, which is, you know, like I said, mid-high level as far as runtime so far. We had 2 instances of nudity in this film. We had both in the same scene. The guy's ass while he's with the prostitute, and we see her breast. We see one breast specifically. So that gives us a grand total of 22 breasts. We have 2 female asses, 5 male asses. So we're like way higher on the male ass. 1 vagina, 1 penis so far. I have a correction. I had Texas was not on here for all this time, and we had Ghost Rider forever ago, and so I've been miscounting and for quite a while now that Texas hadn't been in our list, but we were again in Texas.
In Ghost Rider, was it? I thought we
said Texas, but I for some reason left it off of the future show sheets after that. So apologies.
So we're back at Texas.
Don't write us.
Yeah, each one of those episodes that we've done since will be like, you forgot Texas again.
And then they'll get to this episode and I'm like, well, I didn't finish it, so I never heard you say that.
So that brings us up to 15 total states. This is the second time that we've been to Texas, so apologies for missing that. I screwed up on the budget and the gross tracker at the end of the last season too, and I think it was like, usually what I do is I duplicate the show sheet for the next episode, so I keep track of everything like that, and rather than in a big spreadsheet like you do with the curse trackers. So I had left it off, and like I kept saying the wrong totals for a few episodes, so I cut them out on all those episodes. So everything should be correct now. But this movie had a $4 million budget and made $2.4 million. So a bit of a loss. Indie film, probably wasn't a big wide release. David Gordon Green, though, had some pretty good heat at that point with, I think Pineapple Express had already been out at that point. Mm-hmm. This was 2013, so yeah. So that gives us a grand total of $559.5 million budget with a $1.195 billion gross. So close to double the budget so far. As far as top grossing films, is nowhere near. This is kind of like right smack dab in the middle. We've had quite a few like kind of direct to video releases, but this was sandwiched in between Mandy and Pig, which were probably the two best performances that we've had from Nick Cage so far in the entire show. So these are kind of the three best Nick Cage performances, and they're like all on the low end of how much money they made.
Man, that sucks. That's sad because
it's like I said before, like one of my big issues with those big summer blockbuster tentpole movies is that they kind of overshadow the better performances sometimes, because everybody thinks of Nick Cage as National Treasure, Face Off, those movies, rather than these performances. Which this movie, like nobody's heard of this movie. I feel like Joe was so forgotten. He turned down Expendables 3, and he turned down Killing Season. Yeah, which we asked.
What was the other one? Sorry,
Killing Season, the one with Travolta and De Niro, which would have reteamed him. We talked about it in the Face Off episode, but he turned down both of those movies, which were big paydays. I mean, he would have gotten millions of dollars, and he was flat broke at this point in his career. Yeah, but he wanted to do this movie so much, so he came over and did this instead of a movie that would have returned him to summer blockbuster levels with Expendables 3. So
what's funny is, sorry, just a quick aside, because I don't think we talked about this. If I remember correctly, I think he said Ghost Rider kind of broke him from doing big budget films. And it makes sense because after Ghost Rider, we see a lot of his smaller films. National Treasure, obviously he was kind of in there, but
that was before Ghost Rider, I think.
Yeah,
was
it? I think
was the second one? Was 2005.
I'll try. Or maybe Ghost Rider and National
Spirit
Treasure
of Vengeance was like 2011. I think maybe it was Spirit of Vengeance that broke him.
Ghost Rider was 2007, right, or 2008?
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, so I mean, it does make sense because like if you look at his career after that, he's done just a shit ton of small films, indie films.
I think he wanted to do stuff that he wanted to do. I think he'd reached a point in his career where he was like, I don't need to do this crap anymore. I want to get back to doing things that I'm genuinely passionate about.
Yeah, it sounded like he puts so much into those works, and for them to flop because that second Ghost Rider was talked up quite a bit, and then it just fucking tanked.
It was terrible too.
I think that broke him. It sounds like it broke him, and he wanted to just kind of go back to things that he felt more in touch with. So,
there was that. What was it? That award he just got or whatever he was being honored at that ceremony. Was it for Pig or whatever? He got into acting because he wants to share emotion with the world, and so I think you can't do that if you're playing Johnny Blaze in a shitty sequel to, an already not great comic book movie. He likes comics, he likes comic movies, but unless he can work with somebody like Marvel Studios who might give him a little bit more opportunity to have an emotional role, he's not going to get that, especially from summer blockbusters these days. So
fingers crossed we'll find out in Doctor Strange 2.
Ratings. This was an R-rated film, so it did get a rating. So that brings us up to 9 total R ratings, which is easily the highest, but behind 5 unrateds, 5 PG-13s, a PG, and no Gs so far, but we will get there soonish. Which brings us to the kill tracker.
All right, so kills. 2 kills.
You're not going to count G-Dog?
G-Dog.
G-Dog.
Or the dog. No, G-Dog did that to himself.
Yeah.
But that fucking pilot in Wicker Man I still say that's Nick's fault. So he's staying on the fucking tracker. Don't at me. And it's been a while since we've had a track death, but he died. Yeah. He died in this one. So that brings us up to 8 deaths, which is crazy. I mean, all these films and only 8 deaths. We came out hot and heavy with him dying in like every
5 in a row.
film. And then since then it's died down and we've only had 3 since. It's pretty interesting though to see how it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out by the end of everything.
Yeah.
Where does this masterpiece fall? Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
All right, Vince, where does Joe from 2013 rate on your Cageometer?
God, this movie's fucking depressing, but very well done. And especially after talking about it with you guys, made me appreciate it even more than I did originally. But I gotta give it a 7. I think it was really well done. I think it's written very well, shot very well, directed very well. I think the performances were really good from Nick and from what's the gentleman's name? Tye
Sheridan. Yeah.
Tye Sheridan. Him being so young, I think he did a great job. And finding Gary's dad. Holy shit. I mean, that guy is just like you guys said before, or you mentioned, Patrick, like that's that guy. Like, you don't get that voice without having lived a life like the character that he is portraying. And it all just blended really well together.
It's really sad because it's like this might have lifted him out of the turmoil that he had been in his entire life. I mean, I get the sense that he was dying. He said he was. David Gordon Green said that he was very sick. He was seriously ill at the time of filming, and I think it was alcoholism had probably destroyed his liver and stuff. But you never know. He might have had a second chance at this.
Yeah, it's just sad because he gave a really good performance, and as dark as the film was or is, it did end on a positive note, and to see this kid who at the beginning of the film had had nothing to now have an opportunity to grow a positive life for himself and his family. I thought it was a very touching way to end the film. I could definitely see why people speak very highly of the film. Not having seen it for myself. Cage, I'll give him a 7 as well. I think he did a very good job at playing this character and showing the struggle of the character of trying to be like fighting his good nature and also fighting that dark side. And then when he finally lets it loose, it's just very interesting to see him play it in the way that he did, where it's not over the top Nick Cage. It's very grounded, and you can see the love and care that his character has for Gary as they're bonding in that montage of them looking for the dog. And I really appreciate it. I really liked it. It was really reminiscent of him and Pig and Mandy, like this kind of weird mixture of those two characters, I felt. And it really played really well for me. One of the better performances that we've gotten out of him. Definitely the best performance we've gotten out of him so far this current season. So it was refreshing to get this film after slugging through some of the other films that we've done. So 7 for both film and Mr. Cage.
Well, that leads me to Nigel. Where do you rate this on your Cageometer?
Yeah, I love this movie. I'd heard good things about it, but I didn't know quite what to expect, other than you guys talking about how dark and depressing it was. But I didn't think it was as dark and depressing as I thought it was going to be, I guess, based on what you're saying. I think it ultimately had a positive message. There's some real dark shit that it addresses, and the story's not hopeful for a good chunk of it. But I really liked... It had this like raw sense of verisimilitude, which I think came from adapting it from a story, but also, getting these actors who weren't really actors, but still getting a performance out of them that feels not like that. You can have people who aren't actors who act terribly, but the way they did it in this feels very natural. And I don't know how much of that is their acting skills or how much that is on the director to capture these performances, and people like Nicolas Cage and Tye Sheridan who have to act off of people not acting and still make it feel natural and believable. And I think they nailed that very well. So for me, this was a 9 out of 10. For me, my high watermark is Pig so far, which is a 10 out of 10. This didn't quite reach that level. I had a couple of things that I didn't like about it. I felt it was a little bit too long. For the story it was trying to tell, I feel like it didn't quite have to be as long as it was. I felt the screen time at a couple of points where it sort of dragged down a little bit. I also think that the story was a little bit predictable, even though it was good. I kind of had it pegged right from the first 10 minutes how the story was going to go down. Basically, they telegraph it pretty well on it. But that said, they still present, the story is still presented in a way that is done very well, and I think resonates with people if you're into that type. Not if you're into that type of story, but if you like looking for deeper meanings and stuff, it doesn't hold your hand with things. I also thought that the monologue scene where Joe is talking to Connie, I think, in bed while we see like this monologue of G-Dog breakdancing or whatever, or just rooting through the garbage. I can't remember. I didn't like that too much. I felt like that was too on the nose, where he's talking about like, he sees all these things going wrong in the world and he has to do something about it, but he knows he shouldn't or whatever. I felt like the movie had shown us that rather than telling us that up to that point. And at that point it was just straight out telling us rather than showing us. And I didn't think I had to do that. Just those things kind of knock it down a little bit from a perfect score for me, but I still give it a 9 out of 10 being, one of the best ones we've seen. And like I said earlier, it feels like a modern adaptation of like a John Steinbeck story. Like it has that sense of, putting you in this world, which is real. It's our world that we live in, but it's a part of it that most people don't see or experience. And just knowing that there are people like Gary and Joe and his dad and everybody in the story trapped in this, shitty cycle of society where they're just never going to be able to get out of, the darkness that they're stuck in just through happenstance of being born, And that's why I appreciate that the movie shows a person like Joe can stay good in that environment, relatively speaking. But it ends on a higher note where like, he probably could have walked away from it at any point, got a better thing going for himself. He had the skills to run a business, we saw, and do those things, but he just, for whatever reason, didn't feel like he deserved it or, cared too much about the people around him to not do it. But Gary does have the drive to get up and get out of that life. And Joe's sacrifice is what lets him, dig himself out of that hole and get out of that, that cycle, which I really like that message from the movie. So
definitely sees a better person that he can help nurture in a way.
Yeah. And I think that's a universal feeling. A lot of people feel that, whether it's their kids or, some friends that they might have where they see that they can, put themselves in a better situation or want better for someone else than what they had to go through. I think it's a theme that resonates well with people, very human nature. And I feel like this movie had that message to tell, and it did tell it pretty well. I always look at that too with movies. Like, what did the movie want to get across, and how well did it execute it? And I think this movie wanted to show you, the shitty cycles people go through, and even, to some extent, you could see this realistic attitude that Gary's dad has, where he feels inadequate, and he's like, he knows he's a piece of shit, but he can't be anything better. And that's a very realistic thing. People who are, addicts or homeless or have mental health problems, they're trapped in this, and it's a very real thing that people go through, and it doesn't excuse it, but it doesn't, it provides an explanation for it. And you could see it, you could feel really bad for this guy, even though, maybe not when he's murdering somebody over but this guy's life has been shit to get him to this point where he's doing that, and beating up his family and prostituting his daughter out. It's horrible, but it's realistic, to a certain extent, and the way they present it feels very real. As for Nick's performance, I also thought it was great. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's one of his best performances that we've seen so far. It's kind of hard. Well, I don't know if I want to give it an 8 or a 9. It's really hard for me to tell because it's like, again, Pig is the high water mark, right? Which I don't want to compare everything to Pig, but that movie shows he can disappear into a character, and he mostly disappears into this as Joe, but there's a couple of times where he has cagey moments that I think pulled me out, and I was still aware as I was watching that I was watching Nicolas Cage be Joe. He just fit the character very well. I think somebody else could have done the character as well. I don't know. It's not like it was some role made for Nicolas Cage, but he did really well with it. So I think I'll keep it at an 8. But he, like we said, if he wasn't drunk, he acted drunk very well in those scenes. He put himself into it. He personally connects with the character. And I can feel that too, watching it. Like, it does feel like a very real performance. So I don't know much, what more, what else to say about it, really. I mean, I'm torn because I don't know if I want to give it a 9 or I guess I got to stick with my guns and say 8 out of 10. I don't really know why. It's like I don't feel right giving him an almost perfect score for it, but I feel like it deserves. I don't know.
Yeah. That's why I went 7.
One for me.
That's why I went 7 because I agree. Like, there were parts that pulled me out, but when you're looking at it and he disappeared into the character, like, you couldn't fucking tell that was Nick Cage.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's
he
just
kind of pulls out, and that's what caused me to go with the 7.
I don't know if it's just because he doesn't have as much opportunity as a role like Mandy or a role like Pig to be a completely different person than who he is. He never really reaches the level of someone like Red in Mandy, or never really reaches those emotional moments like Rob and Pig, but I don't know if that's just because the character doesn't call for that. It's the way it was written.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's fair enough to criticize him for that, but I still think 8 out of 10. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good score. And I don't want to minimize anything he did with this movie because I think he did a really bang up job. It's one of the best performances we've seen.
For my Cageometer, I gave the movie an 8. I didn't, I felt like there were a couple moments, like the same thing. Like, I felt like it was a little long. I felt like overall, though, it's an incredible film, heartbreaking, brutal at times, and really sad, but also hopeful. I feel like, it left you with a very positive message. I thought Tye Sheridan was great. You can really see how he kind of got cultivated from these early roles, because I think I feel like he was in Mud as well, but I don't remember for sure. But he was, young actor, and you can tell that he's got range right off the bat. At 15, you could tell. And I think that's why, Spielberg gravitated towards him for other roles and stuff. And then I want to get his name right, Gary Poulter, right?
Gary Poulter.
Gary Poulter. God, what a! I mean, this goes back to a lot of other things. Of like, if you really hated a character, it was because they were an incredible actor. And Gary Poulter was so good, and it's so sad that this was his one and only shot. This is all he got, and then he died before you could even see the movie, I'm assuming, because it was he died 2 months later. And
it really changes the tone of the ending of the movie if you think about it. Like,
and he died in a shallow body of water, and he jumps to his death right next to a river. And then, the scene with the guy where he's beating the guy to death next to the river, it all kind of, it's almost too real. But yeah, he was just, you couldn't take your eyes off of him the whole time he was on screen. He was masterful in that performance. And I feel like it's because he lived that performance, that was his life, unfortunately. But credit to David Gordon Green for finding this guy and for bringing that character to life and like really making you see what this kind of life is like. And in more ways than one, I think you get exposed to a lot of different lifestyles in these smaller towns. These kind of like they don't really have any other option but live these lives, these types of lifestyles, drifters and kind of down on their luck drunks who, are trying to make the best of the situation that they've been presented in life. But yeah, I feel like the world was painted beautifully. I can't give it like a perfect score. I feel like there were a lot of things that kind of took me out of the movie and weren't amazing, and I feel like some of that stuff was actually the metaphors and stuff that they were trying to go for, like the brothel. I didn't really understand the brothel, but after talking about it, it makes total sense. But in the context of Joe's life, I just feel like it's kind of like, would Joe would Joe really go to a brothel? I don't know, but. Yeah.
If it weren't
things
for
like
Connie,
that.
I think so. If it weren't for Connie being in his life, I think the brothel would have made more sense. But it kind of, that's where the brothel kind of became hazy for me. He's got Connie, so why is he going to the brothel? He's not being detached from them as people. He's trying to get to know her. So
he's a super well liked guy. Yeah. It's Nick Cage. It's a handsome dude. Mm-hmm. Maybe Joe in the book is not such a likable person and maybe a little bit more rough around the edges. But that kind of took me out of it. Some of the little scenes kind of took me out of it. Of like, I don't know, I just can't give it like a perfect score. I think an 8 is pretty high marks, especially going back through the films that we've given higher ratings to. I think we've only given higher ratings to Raising Arizona, Mandy, Pig, obviously. Pig, yeah. But yeah, I thought it was a beautifully heartbreaking little film. For Cage, I gave him a 9. I feel like I felt like he disappeared in the role. There were a couple moments like the pow, fistful of dollars thing, and he has this one little scream that he gives in the bar that really felt like a cagey moment for a second there.
When he breaks the bottle.
Yeah. It was like, kind of like in, what was that movie where he screamed like that, where he screamed, Bringing Out the Dead, when he's like screaming while he's going down the hallway and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Yeah. But I thought he was amazing in this role. I thought he was like, this is one of the best performances I've ever seen from Nick Cage. And, it probably has a lot to do with the fact that he said he didn't even have to act for this. So, but like, I don't know. I felt for him and I felt his compassion towards Gary and like, I think we can all kind of identify with his character. It's, in some points in our life of like not feeling like you're good enough and not feeling like you deserve certain things that obviously you do deserve. But I felt like he did such a great job throughout. The drunk scene, like I said, that's the best drunk performance I've ever seen on film in anything. I don't think I've ever seen anybody give a better performance as a drunk. Maybe Nick Cage in Leaving Las Vegas, but like, you felt that he was definitely beer drunk. Like, I don't know how that drunk differs from like hard liquor, but like you could definitely tell that was a beer drunk.
It's more tired drunk, I think.
Yeah.
Like
more
the breathing
down.
and I don't know. It was just really well done, and I feel like he was really great throughout. And just I don't know. I don't know what else to really say about it. He gave it a one of the best performances that I've seen from Nick Cage. So I'm giving him a 9. I'm sticking with it.
I want to change mine to a 9.
Do
I
you?
don't feel right leaving it. Yes, I do. Since I said 8, it doesn't feel right. Like I do. I want to up it to a 9. I'm sorry. I just want it to be on the record.
All right.
I don't want to regret it.
I'll change mine too.
So a 9 out of 10.
Changing mine to a 6. No, I get what you guys are saying, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because, I don't know, maybe I scored things weird. But the 7's not to be disrespectful at all. I thought he did a great job, but there were moments that pulled me out that I wish they would have reined him in, or they would have, like, I don't know, kind of tightened up some of the improv stuff, because I think that's where he went a little cagey. But maybe I'm being a little too critical. But I think you guys are fair with the 9s, and
I don't feel like he was too cagey at any particular moment. You know, honestly, when I watched the movie the first time, I was struggling because I was like, oh my God, there are no cagey moments in this besides like maybe the fistful of dollars thing where he just cuts the guy off mid-sentence. Yeah. But everything else just felt really real, you know, and subdued and genuine. And it felt like, I felt him as a person, you know. I lost sense of Nick Cage. And I felt this character. I felt he was Joe. Kind of the same as Rob in Pig.
When I think about that, like I said, the movie tries to set out to tell us the story that it does it really well. I think him trying to play the character of Joe, he does it near perfectly, you know. And same, I feel the same as you. Like I enjoy this movie because of his performance of it. Like I feel that character and all the complexity of it. Like the brothel stuff doesn't bother me as much because I started asking myself, like, why does he go to this brothel? You know, it seems kind of out of character, but why is it? And I think like maybe it's not out of character. It just helps you understand more of his character, and that maybe he doesn't feel like he deserves anything more than going to a brothel, you know? And that fits his character really well. And it's believable the way that he gives that performance, you know? He's good quiet and reserved, but also not a great guy in certain respects, and Nick Cage plays both of those in a way that is really has you buy into it.
Even in the moments where he's kind of, you know, angry and lashing out, felt real, you know. Felt like when he grabs Gary's dad by the throat and he's talking like 2 inches from his face, like it felt so genuine, like he was really pissed.
And it's so cathartic too, like as an audience member, like you wanted to do that to this guy right from the beginning of the movie, you know. So great performance, great film, one of the best that we've seen, I think, so far in our 20 some odd films. You know, I feel like that's what we're really trying to do with this film is yes, it is us goofing on Nick Cage, but I've always felt this way of Nick Cage. It's like he gives these performances that people make fun of and they joke around with and make memes out of and shit, but he also is capable of delivering these incredible performances, you know, Pig and Joe, and you know, even in some of the other films where we're like more kind of lambasting, you know, or it's goofy, like Mandy, you know, it's like, he fucking, yes, it's a crazy movie, but like he delivers such a heart-wrenching and powerful performance in that film, and with barely any dialogue, you know. So
it's all physical and conveyed through his facial expressions.
Even in Willy's Wonderland, which is a shit movie, like, he doesn't talk at all, but he's still.
Bro, you're gonna get us in trouble with all the fans. that movie is loved. It's got a very. It's got a very good.
To me, it's not even a so bad it's good type of thing. It's just a bad movie. He's fine in it, but my point is he brings something to that character even without saying anything. You know, beyond just being Nicolas Cage, like he managed to make the janitor feel like a real person.
We've talked about this in the past of like every performance out. He brings something to it you're not expecting, and I think that's what's so amazing about Nick Cage. You know, 40 years on in his career is like he still manages to bring something new to the table every time out, and something you're not expecting. You don't know what to expect each time, and I think that's the beauty of Nicolas Cage as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for. These are the Cagiest moments of the film.
My war paraphernalia. Oh, these days I'm gonna be a regular G.I. Joe.
Pow! Fistful of dollars.
Or something like that.
Oh, that's right. You don't like dogs, do you?
That's not true. I love dogs. Just not that dog. My dog is an asshole.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Be a man about it and show me what you got.
We got you surrounded, Joe.
Hey, I'm just one dude.
Freeze, Joe. Put your hands behind your head.
Come on. What are you gonna do?
Joe.
Look, I don't have nothing on me, man.
Freeze.
Why don't you guys both be like big boys and put your guns down and let's talk about it. That's all I'm gonna do. Just talk about it, right?
Now I don't have
Hear that? That's the sound that gets the hookers excited. But they know you got cash. They hear that.
Yes, I do.
That's it for this episode of One Cage at a Time. As always, be sure to drop us an email at onecagepodcast@gmail.com to let us know if we missed anything, or hit us up with suggestions to improve the show, comments, compliments, or simply to gush about the legend that is Nicolas Cage. Coming up next, we'll be breaking down the 1987 Cher classic Moonstruck, which features a 23-year-old Nicolas Cage in one of his first breakout roles. Shortly after an Italian-American widow accepts a marriage proposal, she begins to fall madly in love with her new fiancé's hot-tempered and handless little brother. So like half a hand. He's got half a hand. This romantic comedy was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor for Vincent Gardenia, and won 3 Academy Awards for Best Screenplay, Cher for Best Actress, and Olympia Dukakis for Best Supporting Actress. Watching the film back, I don't really understand how Vincent Gardenia got nominated, and I don't really understand how Olympia Dukakis got nominated.
Yeah, I'm interested to rewatch this
what
film.
What else came out that year? Maybe it was just Dickens for...
Yeah, because
might have been 6 Academy Awards nominations. They won 3.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know it was a huge hit.
I remember there was controversy around Cher winning Best Actress, but I do feel like she gives an amazing performance. So.
Yeah, I thought she did a really good job. I'm interested to rewatch it. I haven't seen this in forever. So
I've never seen it, so
really?
Exciting hearing all those accolades.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it when I watched it.
Hadn't seen it in a long, long time. I think it had probably been since the 90s that I had seen it. And it still holds up.
Well, mid 2000s, I think, for me.
Yeah. Make sure to check it out wherever fine films are sold or on your streaming service of choice. Until then, we'll say goodbye the way we do each and every episode with our Nicolas Cage quote of the film.
You got any pets?
I mean, I had a cat.
What's his name?
Missy.
What'd you feed it?
I don't know, fucking dry food.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
Blow me.
Thanks for listening to One Cage at a Time. Visit us online at onecageatatime.com or follow us on the social media platform of your choice for more Nicolas Cage goodness. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really like the show, become a member of our Patreon, where you can download unedited and ad-free episodes, as well as listen to our follow-up show, Back Into the Cage, where we re-examine each movie to discuss what we missed the first time around, answer listener questions, and wax poetic about the man, the myth, the legend that is Nicolas Cage.
They gon' play it on repeat. Cash 100 milli check, I get paid just to be breathe. Kill it 24/7 cause I slay in my sleep. Yeah, cause I slay in my sleep, bitch. When I talk to God, I be praying for a week, bitch. Tryna hit your ride on my wave, get you seasick. Double D tits in my double C fit. And my energy lit, just spent that 100 G lick. Just